What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian podcast feed. I am your host and born-again Survivor superfan, Jacob Hollaball, and joining me one last time as we recap the finale and basically full season of Survivor 47 is my good pal, Tony Lance. Tony, how we doing this week?
Not too bad at all. I believe it's 46, though. 40 several comes next.
Yeah, gee, wow. This isn't even like a post finale thing from like seeing the trailer. I feel like I've called this season 47 because maybe of all the several jokes.
I think
a third
I've
of the
also,
time this season.
Yeah,
So.
it's also sort of leaked into my brain as well. I'm honestly super glad that we waited a bit to do this finale recap, because if it would have been Thursday, I would have been a lot more like angry. But I'm not I'm not nearly as angry as I was. I've had some time to like listen to some other podcasts and kind of see some Instagram lives and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm never gonna be as amped up as some of the people that watch the show. It's just not my jam. It's not how I roll. But yeah, I'm glad that we had some time to sort of unpack it all. I did only watch it once, but I feel that I retained enough, and that I am also far enough away from it, far enough removed, that I can look at it a lot more objectively than I could have 24 hours after.
Yeah. That would have been interesting to know, because I think I alluded to this fairly enough while we texted immediately after the episode. But yes, if we would have been recording this on Thursday, you would have I would have probably ended up taking down the recording by today, because you would have I have a lot of strong opinions about many things that occurred in this episode, and they have been much more color added to them by getting a
Yes.
lot of the download from people post show, and also just some ability to chill out a little and calm down. And but since we're already mentioning that, this was going to be at the end of the intro, but I'm just going to do it here. Quick PSA.
Yeah.
I know this doesn't matter for anyone that listens to us talk about this, because we got all good quality folks out there listening to this, but obviously with the end of the world of reality competition TV is plenty nasty online and in IRL, in real life, unfortunately. Fairly often. But the end of this season has definitely seen a particularly large nasty streak that has come. And so again, no one listening to this needs to hear this, but if you call a person's place of work or visit a person's place of work to tell them to like F off, or they suck because of something they did on a reality TV competition show, I hope you get the mental health help that you need, but currently your current state, you suck really bad. So in like, you can be a not sucky person. I believe in you, and you need some help. But if you're doing anything of that nature, or not remembering that this is a game, and yes, it does impact one person getting what's left of $1 million after Uncle Sam reaches in. Yes, those are big stakes and everything, but let's try to be kind and remember these are all people, and critique without being mean, which I've certainly planned to do. You're going to hear a lot of criticism in this episode, so is not a hey, let's all be nice and kumbaya. Like you can absolutely lob your critiques. It's the fun part of watching this, is what do I think I would have done in this situation, but let's do it civilly and mean, or without the mean spirit, and let's let people live their regular lives, because they deserve to. They're not bad people because they didn't pick the person you wanted to win
No.
Survivor.
And like if you look at the cast photos, like everybody hanging out now, yes, there are different groups. There are different
There's
pockets.
two groups. There's two groups.
There are. And
there's a clear divide.
Really, like they're all people. Like Maria has had to turn off comments on her Instagram posts. Like it's ridiculous. Kenzie has had, like you said, Kenzie has had to post for people to stop coming to her workplace, just to see her, because she runs a business. And like, I understand that you are very invested in Survivor. I am very invested in Survivor, but not to that extent. I mean, we're going all over the place, but Charlie said it best, and I've echoed this many times, with Brian of Survivor Thailand being the exception to the rule. Everybody who's won has deserved to win their season. They are a deserving winner because the jury picked them. And that's how it shakes out. You could have picked somebody else if you were part of the jury. But until you go on Survivor and make it that far,
Yeah, as
you got to
Q,
pay attention to the people who did.
As Q, one of his many. Who would have thought Q, the voice of reason
Yeah.
between last Wednesday night and today, up to and including an hour ish before we started recording here. This so yeah, please be respectful of people, and obviously the other part of that is like yes. You do sign up for something when you sign
Hmm.
up to go on one of these shows. I do think that needs to be said in there, but this instance of Kenzie and Maria specifically's comments about what they have endured
Yeah.
post the finale airing is not a case of like they signed up to, yeah, maybe you shouldn't scroll through your Twitter comments because it should be fine for someone to say, how dare you not vote for Charlie, like why wouldn't you vote for this? That's all reasonable. That's type of stuff, yes, you do
Yep.
kind of sign up for to go on these shows. It's all the other stuff. And to quote, I don't know who originally said it, but I'm currently rewatching Parks and Rec, and Leslie Knope multiple times a season likes to quote it's like the definition of pornography. Some great senator once upon a time said, I don't know how to define it, but I know when I see it. And so I think we should all be able to easily say, like, we know when we see something like your business was called and your employer was
Yeah.
told to fire you. Yeah, that I'm pretty confident that's ridiculous and silly and dumb, and like we don't need to be doing that. Versus like, I can't believe you didn't vote for Charlie. How could you?
Yeah.
That seems reasonable and civil enough, and whatnot. So yeah, we'll try to stay in the critical but fair, and we know that these people are people that are good people and that we like, and that's where we'll be.
Yeah, we're also basing it off the edit, right? We're not basing it
Yeah,
off of
we don't have
these
the
people
input.
as actual people. We're basing it off of 26 days that we've condensed into 13 hours, maybe 15 hours.
Yeah, and this season is when we get to the tribal and talk about it is one that, I mean, the edit always matters so
Hmm.
much to us of like what we see and don't see. And this one, I had way as many questions as I've maybe ever had about like
Yeah.
what did we not see and kind of like assumptions of things that we didn't see that feel like have to be true. But anyway, so that's PSA, long PSA, done. We are going to cover, for as far as agenda, we're going to recap the finale episode. We're going to walk through the 4 or 5 kind of super pivotal moments from the episode. And then after that, instead of awards for just this episode, we are going to do our full season awards, which will serve as somewhat of a season recap. If this ends up being super duper long, maybe it'll be broken into 2 pods and you'll be like, what do you mean? This podcast doesn't seem to have any of that in it. It would just be the next one, but I assume we'll just make it one very long podcast. So finale recap, season awards. That's what we're here to do. And before we begin, one quick semi-large announcement, debatable whether it's medium size or big size, but we referenced Q's tweet recently of just a few minutes ago, I believe you did, of if you have this strong of an opinion, get on the show, make it to the end, and then you can have voice in who's going to be on the show. So I saw that from Q and I was like, you know what, you're right, Q. And I have subsequently sent in my audition tape as of
Excellent.
yesterday for Survivor, which is the second time I have done this in my life, and I will be submitting an audition tape once a week, every week, until I get on the show or season 50 passes. So that is happening, and I took Q's message to heart and was like, I do want to have a strong opinion. I would like to be there having one of those opinions on the jury. So I did that, and
Excellent.
that's my big announcement.
Fantastic. I did not, but I will have no choice but to podcast about it when it happens.
I mean, we're putting it out there. I had to put in my bio, obviously, that I podcast about the show, but as we saw, you're now Survivor podcasters are welcome in the cast as of
Yep.
season 47. So hey, there you go. So Jeff Probst and all the casting team, feel free, get at me. I'm here, and I will be bothering you once a week in perpetuity. That is my pledge to you, and you, the audience members, feel free to reach out and keep me accountable and ask me if I submitted my tape this week. They will be one a week until they at least tell me like cease and desist or something.
Please stop sending these.
If they don't want to cast me, fine, but I'm gonna make them have to at least send me one email or something that says like, hey, it's not gonna happen, dude, like let it go. And then I'll probably keep sending them. They'll have to maybe tell me twice.
It'll be framed behind you.
Yeah, I'll be like, I don't know, it feels like you're kind of testing me, you got to tell me twice. So that's what's happening. Maybe in the future you'll see me on the show. That would be amazing. But yeah, otherwise, let's talk about this show that did conclude Survivor 46 finale recap first, season awards to follow. Let's dive in. Alrighty, starting the finale off, and thankfully, neither Tony or I have notes for this to go off of, but it's all pretty memorable and should be fine, even noteless. But I wanted to just we both wanted to just watch and enjoy versus having to jot down a bunch of stuff like we normally do. So we start the episode with Maria lying to Charlie. Charlie had caught the stray vote the episode prior, the penultimate episode from Maria and Q. And Charlie, thwarted it, got Q out of there. Maria then lies to Charlie and tries to say, everyone else convinced me that we were voting for you and that I had to go along with it. And that's what happened. And Charlie doesn't seem to believe it, doesn't seem to buy it, but is also like, at this point, like it's not like we're going to have an argument about it. It's not like I'm still going to keep trying to vote you out. You're going to keep trying to vote me out. So like, cool. Thanks for the lie. Do you think this impacted her game or his game in any way? Or
No.
Do you think she could have done this better? Where I think she could have done it better.
She could have done it better.
I don't know what lie would have been better, but I feel like maybe just not lying would have been better.
I mean, at that point, you're like, there's that many people left. You've both had that awkward conversation on the boat that was edited amazingly. Like, it's clear. You're going after her, she's going after you. And you guys both took a shot at each other. You couldn't shoot for her directly because she had immunity. So you did the survivor thing and you took out her number one. And like, that's all you need to say. There doesn't need to be any animosity or anything like that. And I understand. I'm saying this from here, not from there. But she can just be upfront. Like, we all know what happened.
Yeah, I feel like it could have been an interesting and like opened the door for the lies could have been then them being like, should we work together again now? Or, maybe Charlie in his head is like, well, like you took a shot at me and missed. I now have something over you at a final tribal council. So like, maybe I would reconsider us going together because in my head, I might have just got the little leg up on, this duo if we were both there. I think it could have maybe altered things a little tiny bit, but ultimately I don't think any of it would have mattered because of the next thing we're going to talk about, which is the thing I am the most angry about, which is the Final Five Immunity Challenge, where they have to do a long, obstacle course-esque thing, at the end of which they have to solve a puzzle. And on that puzzle, once they're done, it has 3 commands for them to count 3 different sets of numbers from different portions of the challenge, use those numbers to pull out the sword and end the thing. And of course, we get to the end of the challenge and Kenzie has a slight lead on Maria into the puzzle. Kenzie finishes the puzzle. She starts counting. I forget if she says out loud if Liz hadn't finished her puzzle at that point. I forget how Liz came to know that what Kenzie needed.
Kenzie was looking at it and she's like she was reading that it said like from the plank, but she didn't know what the plank was. And she just kind of kept
saying
pontificating on like, what the hell's the plank? And then Liz kind of clicked on it and then Liz booked it back, got her plank.
Took Kenzie's plank, not even Liz's plank, went all the way back the course, took Kenzie's plank and brought it back. And Kenzie won and beat Maria. And this part of it, we could talk about it later. Obviously, Maria was officially voted out of the game in this moment. And you could easily look at this and be like, and this is Kenzie won. Liz cheated, my words, cheated for Kenzie. And Kenzie then won $1 million and Maria lost $1 million. What were your thoughts on them allowing this? Should they have not allowed it? At what point, if they should have said something, should they have said something? What were your thoughts in general?
Here's how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna give you a timeline. When it happened, I was still annoyed at Maria, so I was like, I don't care. Maria was ousted by other people. Ha ha ha. And then, like, in retrospect, I was like, no, that's kind of shitty. And by retrospect, I mean like probably an hour after the episode aired. And I had more time to think about it because I was thinking about everything that happened in that episode. I started like really kind of going back in my head because you and I were texting back and forth, and we had said, or like I had told you, like Adam helped Ken in Millennials versus Gen Xers win a challenge to win immunity. And the more that I thought about it,
How did
because
he help? How did he
he
help? This is
he
very
was so yeah,
needs to be
so
said.
the final four challenge in this episode was similar to the challenge where Adam helped.
Hmm.
So Adam basically realized he wasn't finishing the puzzle, and it was more important that somebody other than, I want to say it was Jay, I might be misremembering. It could even be David Wright. He wanted to make sure that somebody did not win. He wanted to make sure that if it wasn't
Hmm.
him, that it was Ken. And so he stood there, and Ken was working on his puzzle, and he was watching the Plinko board. And as it got closer, he would tell Ken to go back and reset.
Yeah.
So did not come in contact with anything from Ken's side of things. And then in season 21, with Sophie Clark, they weren't allowed to help. So
That was the clip that was going
yeah,
around on Twitter all over the place of her
yeah,
telling the other person, "Stop what you're doing and
yeah,
pick up my
Albert,
blocks for me.
yeah,
Like you're not going to win. Pick up my blocks." And then she
which
dropped her
also
blocks.
was a boss move because Sophie's a badass.
Yeah.
However, what I have sort of like made sense of in my head is Adam was allowed to do it because he did not touch anything. He did not come into physical contact with anything that Ken was doing. All he was doing was alerting him to the position of the ball that he would need to go reset. Whereas Liz went out and fully picked up the plank and brought it up. Now, I'm not saying Liz had set out to cheat, but no one stopped her, meaning that it and Maria subsequently got voted out. So I guess in the realm of season 46, that's fine. But historically speaking, if you're going to meddle in any way physically with somebody else's stuff on a challenge, no bueno.
Hmm.
So I am now back in the camp of, as much as it was a crazy way for Maria to go out, I do not agree with it taking place.
So that was good, and we need the history, and I appreciate you filling in the one time it was kind of allowed before. It's important to say how it happened.
Yeah.
Um, so two things on this. The first one is they both are related to, they absolutely should not have done this, and I think they're going to deeply regret doing this,
Yes.
allowing this.
Yes.
They should have said something to Liz the moment she started climbing down, of like, Liz, you haven't finished your puzzle, like what are you doing? Or at least like when she picks up Kenzie's, like, you can't touch someone else's,
Yeah.
whatever. Something, they should not have let it happen for two reasons. First off, and this is the differentiator between what happens here and what has happened before. It's not even just that she physically touched something of the other person. It's she saved someone an immense amount of time. The
Yes.
thing where, you being a second set of eyes for someone, or
Totally.
even I would throw in a similar camp, like trying to help them with their puzzle that we saw a couple
Mm-hmm.
seasons ago in the team challenge. Like from the side, they were like,
Yeah.
we'll kind of try to give you instructions. You still have to do all of it. So yes, you could maybe do it faster, but you still have to do all of it. At the end of this challenge, on the puzzle, I would say Maria was somewhere around 30 to 60 seconds at most behind Kenzie in finishing her puzzle. When they finished the puzzle, there was three things they had to count. One was the amount of geckos on the puzzle, which modestly, if you went slow and guaranteed you got it right, would maybe take you 45 seconds again.
Yeah.
The second one was they had to count the number of puzzle pieces they just put together, which, similar to the gecko, modestly, if you went slow, made sure you got it right, 45 seconds, whatever. Going to get the board takes 3 to 5 minutes. They had to go through multiple obstacles. They had to climb up and down. That
Yep.
is minutes worth. At the fastest person there doing it, the fastest Kenzie could have done that, maybe 3-ish minutes or probably more time. So
Yeah.
that is what was taken away. And then, like, Maria, you have to compete against this thing where there's three things. Two of them take under 1 minute. One of them takes 3 to 5 minutes, and she doesn't have to do the one that takes 3 to 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and you do. It's just, there's no way Maria ever could have won this. And I think for that reason, that's reason one why they just, for Maria's sake, this game prides itself on being fair, making all
Mm-hmm.
of the challenges as fair as possible. I love that about this game. And this was the furthest thing from fair. This was
Yeah.
they decided you were the best player. And now the thing that is somewhat of a gripe of like the best player always gets voted out at 6 or 5. And like, maybe we should find a way to have them maybe be able to make it to the end. Now it was like straight up like, no, the best player is just like guaranteed out. We could just work together and they're out. The second reason, and you kind of allude to, is now there's a little bit of a precedent set here
Mhm.
of like what's allowed now and what you're going to have to tell. Someone is going to try to do something like this in the future, and you're going to have to tell them no, and you're just going to have to get through the embarrassment of telling someone no. Because I was looking for on the next immunity challenge someone to just be like, I'll go catch your ball for you. Like,
Yeah.
great. Like, I don't know, it probably would have honestly been like maybe Charlie helping Ben and being like, will you take me to the final? Great, like, here we go. But they open the can of worms of someone in the future is going to, talk before a challenge of like, hey, we don't want so and so to win, so you're going to try your best, and I'm going to, whatever is available to us for me to help you, I'm going to go do.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to tell them no, or I would imagine they're going to off camera have to tell the next, maybe not 40 several, because those players won't have, or they've left. Yeah. Obviously we saw the trailer, they've filmed it,
Yeah.
so they won't have seen this, but 48 and on, they're going to maybe have to tell cast in advance, like, hey, they won't have to say out loud why they're making this new rule or thing that is, they're reading them in advance, but like, hey, when it comes to the immunity challenges, these are like the can do's and the cannot do's.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it was horrible. I think Maria should be, there's lots of bitter talk around final tribal council, all that. There's one person who deserves to be bitter about one thing, and that is Maria being like, well, I lost because they got to do, two people got to do one thing. It was 2-on-1 in a time thing.
Mind you,
So
that's
like,
the person she voted for.
yes, which I think maybe subconsciously played a little bit too of like, well, I don't know, I kind of want Kenzie to be the one that wins too, but we'll talk
She's the
about
one that
that
took me
later.
out.
So yeah.
But yeah, like the other thing too was not mentioned on Fire with Jeff Probst. Like I listened to the
I think
final one.
they want to act like it never happened.
Yeah,
I think
was
that's
like,
what they're gonna do.
I was kind of shocked because I'm like, okay, this, and actually when I hit play on it, I was like, this is the episode that I want to listen to because I want
This
to
is
be
what
able
they're
to.
going to open with. It's the only thing they had to talk about.
Yeah, I wanted to come into this being like, so this is what they said. Instead, nothing that they said. Which I don't get. I understand like you're saying, like they want to sweep it under the rug, and I'm sure that when they do 47, because even though they haven't, the cast of 47 has not seen all of 46, but Jeff has been through it, so I can only imagine that when they get to the individual portion, they will be saying, like, when they're walking everybody through the actual challenge, you can't interact with anybody else's stuff.
The true explanation they get that we don't see of like, well, let's actually make sure everyone knows what they're doing here, and here's all the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
So that sucks, and it definitely, I was really, really heated, which then made my feelings for things later in the episode just amplified way more, just because I was just so bummed out that this was how this went. Although again, it's obviously wildly entertaining, a major moment, going to be very memorable, but it was definitely a decision that I think production would, it's rare that Survivor production has something I think that they would think they would take back, but I bet all of them, if you gave them some truth serum, would be like, yeah, we maybe take that one back. And I do think they're correct in their current PR standpoint of we're gonna act like this never happened and never talk about it, and behind the scenes we're gonna make sure that there's rules in place to try to put the lid back on this can of worms. But Kenzie does win, and then she takes Ben on the last reward. I guess it's not the last reward of the season, because then Ben gets one too. Again, Ben ends up eating a lot at the end of the season, so good for him. But she takes Ben over Liz, who literally just helped her seal the win.
Although I did like the why.
What was her why in this one?
Because it was
I wasn't paying attention at this point.
Because you were seething. You were just seeing
I
red.
actually was standing up, pacing around.
So she was like, Liz obviously just helped me win, but Ben hasn't been on the last few rewards. And she was going back and forth, and Liz was like, I can't even eat pasta. Take Ben. And I was like,
the conundrum of what Liz can and can't eat really went to all new levels that I thought it was already at the highest level, but then this one was like, wait a minute, it seems like the ingredients of this is similar to the Chinese food that we
So
did eat. Or
possibly
did
on
we
the
get
Chinese
answers about
food,
that?
but I did notice there is a photo. I want to say it might have been Q who posted it or Ben who posted it.
Yeah, she doesn't
Um,
eat the buns
yeah,
at
she
Applebee's.
had
Yeah,
lettuce. She
lettuce
had the
burger.
lettuce bun.
Yeah.
Um,
Which, by the way, a huge bread fan over here. So this is not some anti-bread health thing. Lettuce buns and lettuce wraps are actually, I order them quite often because I find them more enjoyable sometimes than
yeah,
bread on a burger or something. Different flavor, different
we
element.
do
Yeah, but
the we do lettuce wraps a lot around here.
I saw that as well. Of like, okay, so like there's a little more consistency here, but regardless, it was confusing. And Kenzie ultimately then tells Ben, I just wanted to like have my best buddy of the who's left out here
Yeah,
like hanging out with me. Like, why not? There's not really game to be talked. So like, there, which I agree with. There wasn't, the
no,
strategy was, I just beat Maria. We're gonna vote Maria out. I'm not concerned about, should she have been concerned about an idol back at camp? They do look for an idol, but like I would have felt pretty confident there's not going to be an idol at Final Five put in,
no.
you know. Yeah.
I mean, I will say this was the most interesting outcome because we had talked last week about how if it's not whoever wins, the other goes. So if Maria wins, Charlie goes, and if Charlie wins, Maria goes. But then Kenzie won, which was sort of like our dark horse theory because she had one in the past, but we didn't know what that outcome was going to be because they very easily could have said, "Look, like yes, Maria is good at this game, but so is Charlie. This could be our opportunity to get Charlie out because he wins more of these types of challenges."
Yeah.
I will also say, because ultimately we know Maria goes home, Maria had she played a great game. Like she went from absolute hero to perceived villain. But what people aren't remembering is that Sandra and Boston Rob and Tyson and Parvati are some of the best to ever play the game. And they were all on the villains tribe on Heroes versus Villains. And
Yeah.
they are villains. They have been villains consistently throughout their run on Survivor. And I think that social media, everything else, like the access that we all have now has tainted that mindset. But I truly think that Maria played an amazing game. And yes, some people can be bitter for Charlie because of how it all ended up. But at the same time, like Charlie has even said, I don't wish her any ill will. I don't think the internet should either. However, that doesn't mean that we have to be friends. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
that we have to be the same as we would have been had there been a different outcome. And I think
Yeah.
that's important to remember because she played one hell of a game. Like, kudos to you for that being your winner, for her being your winner pick, because
I almost
it was
had it.
close.
So close. God damn you, Liz. I love you so much, but you cost me by helping here. And the one thing we haven't said, and it needs to be said, Kenzie more than likely would have won the challenge on herself. She was
Yep.
leading, and she is fully capable of running back, picking up her board, and counting to 34
Yeah.
in the same span of time as it would take Maria to do that. And so, therefore, Kenzie was winning by upwards of a minute, like we said, and very well would have just won by a minute or so if she did all of it on her own. So I just want to make sure that as said, this wasn't like some like they never would have beat Maria moment. Yeah, so then obviously Maria's voted out, and I don't think there's really any. Did you for any second think that there was any chance in hell that this wasn't going to happen? I mean, they
There.
didn't even try to edit it in a way. They
No.
gave her the big speech at Tribal Council. Tribal Council was basically like a big like, let's let Maria talk as much as she wants. Let's get her story out there. Let's say how great of a player she is, and then let's snuff her torch. So I don't even think they
I
tried because they
I
knew
would
there
have.
was no way they were convincing us otherwise.
No, and that's kind of the thing is like I was almost hoping that they were going to do all this and then be like Charlie bye. Just and like
It would
just
have been
from
amazing.
yeah, it would have been amazing from an editing perspective where like Maria gets her flowers and everything like that. Like she speaks her piece, she says why she's here, what she's accomplished. Everybody says how great of a job she's done, and then Charlie gets voted out.
The only thing, and it's interesting with the context again of she eventually doesn't vote for Charlie. The only thing I feel like she could have done different is while they're alone with Liz, she pitches Liz and Charlie on like we could vote for Ben. Ben's this huge threat. Like, do you guys not,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know Charlie's right there, but like your only move in that, and it wouldn't have worked, but
No, but
your only move with a 1% instead of a 0% is Liz. I don't know if you've noticed, but Charlie and I have played the same game, and you guys have completely pulled the wool over my eyes the last vote, and I'm expected to go out on this one. I think he's officially risen above in our duo of the threat. And I think when Kenzie and Ben get back, you should have a serious talk with them about, is Charlie a bigger threat than me? Again, I don't think that's going to work, but I think there's at least
it's
a
a valid argument.
non-zero argument versus the, respectfully to Ben, the 0% chance argument that you were going to convince Liz and Charlie, like, you guys should definitely vote out Ben over me. Like, come on,
Yeah.
guys, like think this through. He's this dark horse. Like, okay, Maria, sorry, it's not going to happen. So yeah, so she's voted out, and then we go immediately basically to the final four immunity challenge,
Which was cool.
and it looks cool, which I always love,
Yeah.
even if it's like this one wasn't pointless, but like it's great that they build something, build something really big that visually, this is one of the times where like the wide shot, the overhead shot, like I'm actually like looking for like, yeah, I want it to like, you put a lot of time and resources into making this big final challenge. And so I thought it was really, looked really cool. The game itself, how did you feel about the game itself being the, not just like as a survivor individual challenge, but obviously it means a little more when it's the final
Yeah.
four immunity challenge.
I liked that it wasn't Samotion for once, and like I like Samotion as a challenge. I think it's really cool. And
Samotion's the one where the ball goes
yeah,
around the
and
track
then
and
it
eventually
pivots
there's
the
more
tracks.
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that as a challenge. I like that people have come to expect it, but that's also why I liked that this was the final challenge, because these people are super fans, right? They're walking in probably fully expecting to see Samotion. And there could have even been people who had like figured out how to practice that sort of thing at home. And then they get this, which is something that is a lot up to chance, because you're watching this Plinko thing come down, and based on what it hits depends on how fast it goes. And on Fire, they were talking about how many pegs they put in each one so that it had as much bounce as possible or as many tracks as possible, and making it as hard to predict as they could, but also in making that track be as gradual as they possibly could. And watching the torture in Charlie's face watching that thing go, it was going so slow.
It took forever.
Yeah,
That was my main slight nitpick, was like it feels like it maybe was too big of
too big.
a disadvantage, but like again, that's like, well, like that's the whole point, is don't
Right.
drop it ever, and like one time is basically death, because it felt like, I mean, he ended up dropping twice and so did Liz, but like it felt like dropping it once basically was, I mean, it's, who knows if it actually took 30 seconds or took two
Right.
minutes, but it seemed like it was much closer to like 2 minutes of like you're standing there forever. You're astute pointing out, yes, it traveled down. It seemed to me to be much more about the top and the
Yeah.
throw in of like, you should watch it go in the top, because the first time Charlie missed is because he had kind of timed in his head and he didn't even turn around before it had
Yeah.
popped. But it was, you could see in the background when he first threw it up, it bounced and skipped over the first like four to
Yeah.
start. And so it, took off a third of the time it was going to be up there. So there was definitely a big variability. Super difficult game. I liked it. Again, it looked, the grandeur, it made it seem like, big, grand, and it does feel like it is kind of a sister challenge in a way to Samotion, of like,
Yeah.
it's the timing of this ball that you have to constantly be paying attention to and doing something. So I like that it was a different game that had some roots or some tie-ins to the game we kind of expected. And out of nowhere, the unexpected, Ben wins. Ben,
Yeah.
who is, we get more, he's having night terrors every night now, panic attacks every night. He's completely loopy. He's getting to the point where we're starting to believe him that the Kenzie vote was an actual accident, and that somehow is possible to have happened. And yet, as Jeff, properly makes a big deal afterwards, like, how the hell did, like, how is this game where you have to concentrate on two things at once? How did you just win this? And Ben gets what I saw a lot of people referring to as kind of his Jake moment, of like, similar to last season, where Jake kind of got the one moment at the end when we kind of all knew going into the final three, like, I don't think this is going to work out too well for you when we get to that
Yeah.
final tribal council. So it's like, it's really got like really awesome that this very likable person gets this moment of triumph to kind of, sit in the spotlight for a second and feel really great about themselves. And I know you, obviously big Ben guy over there,
Yeah.
had to be loving this part of the episode.
Oh, absolutely. It was very unexpected, but it was a great moment for Ben. And nice that he kind of got put in the driver's seat, because one of the things that we didn't see a lot of, and I did hear a lot about it in exit press between Charlie and Ben, was just how tight they really are. Like, they were tight from the beginning and they remain tight, but it just wasn't shown as much because Maria and Charlie were the bigger alliance. They were the more prevalent alliance in the context of the season.
Yeah, and the story, obviously, now knowing the very
Yeah.
end of the story, we know even more so why the editors were like, we're leaning into these two that were, one was the favorite to win and the other is the second place, and one didn't vote for the other. So
Yeah.
makes sense. But yeah, because we get the whole, they reference the Dumb and Dumber alliance that I had forgot they like ever even said that, but like
Me
we see
too.
them after the show, like at the watch party, literally dressed in the Dumb and Dumber
Which
suits and
was
everything. So
amazing.
yeah, those two, the whole Sega crew minus minus Maria, are super tight and like
Yeah.
traveling groupies for Ben's band currently, which is fun. But Ben then is in the spotlight. He has a decision to make,
Yeah.
and he has to pick, the big decision of the season, the fire making, and his choices end up being Liz. His first choice is Liz is going in.
Yeah.
He says it's because Liz is the biggest threat, which finally someone puts some goddamn respect on Liz's name. Thank you, Ben. Deserved. We'll come back to Liz's threat level in a minute, but she's gonna go in. She's
Yep.
horrified about it. We're not going to talk about the wrists. I don't want to
Oh
talk
my
about
god. The
that was
the
that free the sound of
this the sound.
the sound they added, okay, or
Yeah.
amplified or whatever. We don't need more. We've already spoken too much. But then he has to pick between Charlie and Kenzie,
Yep.
and Charlie and Kenzie both very notable. One, Ben never for a second thinks about putting himself in, and then also notable, Charlie and Kenzie both say we would prefer not
Yeah.
to do it, but are gonna practice and be prepared to do it.
Yep.
I was a little shocked that all three of them, and even technically all four, because Liz also, hers was a little more like fear of losing,
Yeah.
was that she didn't want to do it as much as like, obviously she also thought, I already have the resume to win. I don't need this. But for all four, it feels like a little bit of a turning point. It
I
also,
hope.
obviously, it kind of matters a little bit. The one who
Yeah.
won fire does win the season. So like that was still there to some respect, but that all four of them are like, I don't need to do this and I don't want to do this. Were you
Yeah.
a little surprised that either Charlie, Kenzie, or at least Ben himself even wasn't like, I got to do something. I got to Hail Mary here. Like, I got to at least try.
I mean, Ben's fairly astute at what his capabilities are. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if he's like, I'm not good at fire, so I'm not going to put myself in that position and take myself out of the game. But
I think the secret thing was none of them were that good at fire.
no, none of them
Or at
were.
least none of them were confident at
Yeah.
fire. I don't know if they're actually what their skill set actually is, but none of them seemed confident in doing it,
And
certainly.
I would love to say that this would be a turning point of fire, of like not winning immunity and putting yourself in fire to get to the final, to have that on your resume, because really it's such an so many
Well, the
people
thing
put,
we needed was Ben to
yeah.
do it. We needed Ben to put himself in, win, and then get 0 votes at final tribal council for it to
Yeah.
actually be like, hey,
This
that's no
doesn't work.
guarantee anymore. Like, you don't get to just win final four and win fire and you win the season. It's a cool thing if you do it, but it's one thing that is equal to any other one thing someone does.
Yeah. I think that now I want to say the stats are, I want to say it's 8 have won and 5 have not, that have gone into final fire and won.
It's been around that long?
It's 35.
Edge of Extinction, right?
It
Or
was
not,
Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers, because
it was just
it was Ben's first season.
Yeah, but the moment that changed it, the Chris Underwood
Yeah,
was
Edge of Extinction.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that's what
Put
I
him
was
in
for
against
some
my
reason.
guy Rick Devens.
Yeah, I was for some reason thinking that was the first time it had ever happened too.
No. But
well-
yeah, like I'm surprised. I understand why Charlie didn't, because he felt that he had already like built himself enough of a resume that he didn't need that last feather in his cap. I will say that one of his stumbling points was saying that at Final Tribal. Um, however, I I think that it did help Kenzie, but I don't think that Charlie going in and winning Fire would have necessarily like hurt her either. I think that both of them, it was going to be tight between the two of them anyway, no matter how they got to the end. But in this case, definitely Fire helped a little bit.
Yeah, we do get the reference from we get the reference from Maria when asked.
Yeah,
I made it through about 10 minutes of the after show. So I did not watch the entire after show by any
I did.
means. But she references there right away of like
Yeah,
saw the fire in Kenzie's eyes and whatever, whether that matters or not. But I was surprised that Charlie didn't do it. Not that he didn't initially, but that once Ben made it clear Liz is going in and I'm picking between the two of you, and Liz was pretty open, and we do find out after the fact that Liz was acting a lot on this season in different ways,
yep.
which I love. I don't think she was obviously not acting in this moment, and I
No,
don't think anyone should have been like scared that she was trying to like hoodwink anyone. I was kind of expecting once Charlie was like, okay, if Liz is going in and she's over there having a tough time with this news and practicing and everything, a part of me thought like, should Charlie go to Ben and be like, hey, dude,
yeah. Put me in.
put me in versus like if it's gonna be Liz, I'll do it. Like
Pull a
I'll
Jake.
take that. You don't have to do the decision. I'll go ahead and do it and feel pretty comfortable that you can win. Um, but yeah, I obviously like that all four of them were like, we don't need to do this, and
Yeah,
I'd prefer not to. It's hopefully a good harbinger for things to come. But obviously Kenzie does go in. Her and Liz face off, and um, Kenzie beats Liz.
yep.
And after Liz has 3 or 4 times of the spark, the flame for a half a second. And just the other notable thing about this that I heard a few people, the former cast members stuff, talk about afterwards was this was the first season of the new era where they didn't give them the same materials to practice as were
Yes,
at Final Tribal Council, or the second time maybe. Um, I think it was the
I
first,
think it
but
was the first. Yeah,
it was who was on Cody from 44 yeah, 44 43
43.
whatever, 43 was with Tyson on to recap the finale, and said how like on their season they got the actual like, this is what's going to be at
Yeah,
Final Tribal Council you could practice with, and here it was completely different materials. And so I think that definitely impacted Liz. But there was a moment I thought she was going to do it, and obviously Kenzie beats her. We'll talk about Kenzie in a minute, so let's finish thoughts on Liz, who after losing has some fantastic moments
yep.
that were somewhat derided online by people who I guess just aren't paying attention,
Hmm.
and including then also, got eye rolls from the jury who I guess just weren't paying attention, because obviously if you've listened, unless this is the first time you've listened to Tony and I talk about the show, uh, we were definitely on Liz's trade. Liz, if she's in a Final Tribal Council, she has the best argument if we're
Yep.
going off of gameplay of anyone left, in my mind, even over Charlie, who I'm about to give an impassioned argument for. Um, so I love that Liz was just straight up like, I would have beat all of you, and just
Yep.
like letting it out, like, fuck, I can't believe this is how I lost. Like, I got all the way here. Um, and as we find out afterwards, she doesn't even get to reveal that Liz, not only not a billionaire, not a millionaire, kind of getting by single mom.
Yep.
And that was all part of her strategy, and she was going to release that information,
And it
or
worked. Like
yeah,
her
it
strategy.
it
Yeah.
took the target off her. And it makes, looking back on, we'll talk moments of the season, but her initial, when the only thing we got to talk about for 3 episodes of Liz was, oh yeah, Liz, the one who we've heard 2 sentences from. One is, I'm really, really great. And one is, I've owned and sold a bunch of businesses and I'm rich. And that
Yeah.
was all we had. And we were like, oh my God, Liz is amazing. I don't know what her deal is, but she's freaking cool. Was all a lie, and it worked. It maybe worked too well, because no one, it seemed, a lot of people watching, and certainly a lot of the people playing, we're not privy to Liz actually having a major impact on the game.
I think another thing too is and this is no disrespect to the people on the jury. Like, this is a season where I liked uh, most of the cast. Like, I don't really think there's anyone I didn't like on the cast. Um, I don't think that there are some people that would be willing to admit that Liz outplayed them.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough pill to swallow when you look at what we saw in the first couple of episodes, to then come back and for Liz to be like, here's how I duped you. This is how I made it to the end. This is how I played my game. I don't know if in the moment people would be able to say, you know what, touche.
Yeah. And I think it was where, I think she maybe just she was on an 11 when she needed to be on a 9
Yeah,
on the strategy of like you did it too well, of where like you got people to not take you seriously instead of
yeah,
not take you as a threat. It was you kind people stopped taking you serious. And then, you know, the Applebee's moment, as great as it was, added to that the things like, even in this episode, the very hilarious moment of her acting like the old woman walking into the challenge is
amazing.
like, that's hilarious and entertaining, but it maybe is reaffirming, unfortunately, this thing to the other cast members that are even still left, head of like, yeah, Liz is like, as Kenzie, when she rattles off everyone's how where they are in the family, she's like the crazy grandma or whatever that we all like laugh. I forget, I think she says grandma or crazy aunt wanted to, but like we kind of laugh at her and like we love her to death, but like she's just over there being Liz, kind of thing. Like, so it almost worked too well. um but it was a bummer to see her go. I would have been thrilled to see,
Me
with
too.
respect to Ben, uh, to see Liz added to Kenzie and Charlie in the arguments then, of all three of them having very different reasons and cases versus just the two compelling reasons that we ended up with. So goodbye to Liz. The final thing to point out that I saw, I didn't see the full interview, but I saw a clip but it's also Liz talked about in one of her many exit interviews or presses that she's done, that she was very aware of screen time and
Yeah,
said that
I
she
saw that.
voted people out, like, or was willing to vote people out based on like they're getting too much screen time, and admitted both from like a standpoint of the game itself, like that kind of told you a little bit about people standing in the game, but also like if you're going to go do a TV show, like you should get on television. And
Yeah,
like, I wanted to be on TV and I didn't want the people that were getting more screen time to be there anymore. And I was like, hell yeah, thank you for your honesty, Liz, because if and when they cast me on this show, I also will be a little bit like, well, I did agree to be on TV and that terrifies me, but if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be on TV. So
yeah. And like, it's such a cool way to think about it too, because you know that like people get taken for confessionals and stuff like that, and that's something that Liz is also clocking, is
mhm.
how often people are going for confessionals, where the cameras happen to be,
Which is
who they're
high level
talking to.
strategy
High level
of like,
strategy.
yeah, right before the tribal council, we've heard people talk, like Tyson references this on his show a lot, all the time, of like,
Yeah,
you learn a lot in the 5 minutes before tribal on like, do they ask you to do one last confessional? Do they give you 2 minutes after that confessional, or do they just usher you off? Like,
yeah.
you can learn all these things by kind of paying attention to what production's doing. So Liz, the savvy veteran that she was, she will be desperately desired on season 50, as a lot of these cast members will be. But now they obviously they get their feast. It's fantastic. It's great. But they prepare there, including Charlie making an Excel spreadsheet in the sand,
I see.
which
This
was,
is why we work, Jacob, because I wrote, I like watching everyone practicing their speeches and Charlie having a sand based Excel doc of who would vote for who.
I was so impressed.
Yeah,
It was good. It was huge. Like, that took some time. I was very impressed.
I saw that and I was like,
So
Jacob's going to love this.
yeah, so that was great. And yeah, they practice and they go to Final Tribal Council.
Yep.
And we've got a bunch of questions to cover about Final Tribal Council. The first one, kind of high level here. Should we see more of it? We don't see that much of it. It is a
No.
lot longer, and it's the whole show, obviously, as you
Right.
referenced before. We see 13 hours or whatever, 17 hours or 90-minute episodes of a 26-day experience. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe some would complain because it is a 3-hour finale, 2 hours plus the hour after show. Um, but seems like everyone's on board to scrap the after show for the sake of the person who loses.
Yeah.
In this case, Charlie. I'm definitely on board with that. Um, I wouldn't if they said the finale is a 3-hour episode because Final Tribal Council is 90 minutes and it's like borderline unedited. I'm all
I'm game.
for it. I
Yep.
would like to know because I feel like we missed so much context throughout the season to then also kind of miss context of the Final Tribal Council and
Yeah.
find out so much afterwards from like Ben talked a lot about, he was kind of just like shut down over and over. Like they didn't even want to hear him
Yeah.
talk, which like not Ben couldn't have said anything to if I'm on that jury to get me to vote for him, but like he damn well deserves the respect of
Exactly.
like fully answer and give your best pitch and like, have the experience and everything and
Well,
not to
yeah.
just be
I'm
like, you
like,
don't matter, we're not voting for you, go away. Like that's not cool.
and I,
But
I'm rubbing my head a lot this episode, but I sort of soured on Tiff a bit because of that. Because she opened the tribal by saying, like, final tribal by saying, I don't want Taylor Swift lyrics and I don't want pop culture / rock song references. We aren't here for that. We want you to explain your game. I'm like, cool. So you've pointed out Ben and Charlie. What is Kenzie not allowed to talk about?
yeah, that was subtle. Tiff was there to help Kenzie
Totally.
win.
And that's
She is
fine.
not far from the first
Yeah.
person to be like, I know who I'm voting for, and I'm
Yep.
going to do my damnedest to help them give a good performance and to kind of tear down to some degree the other people. But the only reason that portion of Tiff's kind of rubbed me slightly wrong was like, well, you are about to vote for a person based on relationships and
Yeah.
purely social game relationships, which I could respect. But your comment was, I don't want to hear these personality traits from you guys. I only want to hear the gameplay. When in reality, she was going to vote for gameplay, yes, but mostly like my friend, the social butterfly
Yeah.
that dominated everyone loves here and is why she's about to win this game. So it was a little like, I don't know, but
And like the timekeeper aspect of just like
that
Soda.
part bugged me. So
Yeah.
speaking
Soda
of wanting
asking
to
a
see more,
question. Yeah.
yeah.
Soda asking a question and then Tiff being like, and I'm going to be timekeeper. I'm like, okay.
Well, Soda
Well,
does say like you get 30
yeah.
seconds. And yeah, so like it wasn't like Tiff was like, and I think you should only get 30 seconds for
No.
this question. But I did not like the timekeeper aspect at all. It honestly goes to the I again would like the unedited full Final Tribal
Totally.
Council because I want to see all of it. And these people have endured and won their way to the final three on a 26-day thing of 18 people. If they want to pitch you for 10-minute answer to your question, Soda, that can negatively
Mhm.
impact you. You can be like, I don't, this is long-winded and not making sense or whatever,
Yeah.
but they should get to ruin their game if they want via
On their own.
I just talk forever versus you get 30 seconds and that's it. Which for Soda's question, it was fair. It wasn't, there's a different version where it's like, I'm going to ask a question that two people have a very succinct, an
Yeah.
obvious answer to of like, I voted you out and I was the mastermind behind that grade. And the one person's like, it's going to take some explaining. So I'm going to put 30 seconds and it's kind of like unfair to one. It
Yeah.
was like fair as far as what she asked of all three of them. But yeah, I did not
No.
like it for,
And
it felt odd. I don't know.
it felt odd, and I will end that by saying that one of the and I understand that Maria was the one who ultimately got Tiff out and not Kenzie, but it was Kenzie's idea initially because Kenzie knew what she had to do, had to do, and to get Tiff on the jury, and to get Tiff out of the game. So for me, that aspect of it, Kenzie did exactly what she needed to do. She put somebody on the jury who was going to absolutely advocate for her and try to downplay to some extent the other two people sitting on either side of her. So that is not to say that it is without merit. It's just that the way that it was gone about was not the best for me. But Tiff is
Yeah.
still like somebody who I'd like to see play again.
This also, to go backwards, very quick tangent to
Mm-hmm.
the like, did Maria have any outs after losing Final Five?
Yeah.
The one thing, if she was gonna say Ben, the only thing she should have been pushing was Charlie. Ben will vote for one of us,
Yeah.
and like she would have had to be like, and I won't. I don't know, but there was a little bit of like, yeah, like Charlie's advocate, the only person, as much as people want to be mad, like Maria should have been, Ben was his Tiff as far as
Yeah,
like
100%.
super
Yeah,
good buddy. Wasn't that we played the game exactly together the whole time, but just like that's my
that's my
lifelong
guy. Yeah,
awesome friend now. And if I was up there, I would be kind of under the radar trying to shade the other two people and prop up my guy.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, so like I appreciate Tiff doing that. That's definitely part of it. Like, if you develop a ride or die relationship out there like that on that level, like absolutely get that person that $1,000,000. It's going to benefit you obviously down the road. So go ahead and do it. Um, let's talk the performances then now. Would I don't have on our list Ben. Would you like to say any final words about Ben before we talk about the two vote getters? We already said before, obviously it's horse shit that they, if what he says is true, which I have no reason to believe it was anything but true, that they kind of weren't too
shut him
interested
down.
in listening to him talk or kind of shut him
Yeah,
down a little bit. That sucks and isn't cool. And like listen with a smile and tell him he's awesome. And you don't
yeah.
have to vote
Like
for him. Great.
he got there. He played a good game. He outplayed everybody else on the jury. In whatever capacity you want to look at it, they placed lower in the game than Ben did. Um, I think that Ben did a good job explaining what we saw of his game, meaning like he explained what we saw of him explaining. He did a good job. We didn't get to see a whole lot because I guess there wasn't a whole lot to see, but I think that he stayed true to who Ben is and didn't deviate from that. Kept on going on the exact same train. I think that there are a lot of similarities between Jake and Ben, not just in that they didn't get any votes at Final Tribal, because that's not getting no votes is not any indication that you played a bad game.
Yeah, there's only each person can only vote for one
Yeah,
person. Um, I weirdly thought, well, the big difference for me between Jake and Ben is that Jake had a shot and kind of blew it with a couple of him and the we don't
a
have to
little bit.
relitigate him and Katura not able to get on the same page to multiple chances to vote out the eventual winner or people that would have won if they voted out the eventual winner. But I don't. It felt like Ben was the first. He'll probably never say this. I'm sure even it's not true anyway. But for me, it was the first time I watched someone who was like, I'm pretty sure he's like almost wants to be the zero vote finalist. Like he's down to just like it'd be pretty sweet to just like get to the final three. Like I'm gonna basically play a zero vote finalist game almost of like I'm just gonna like be a loyal, confident vote in the big alliance every time and great and I'll be friends with everyone and maybe that I'll end up in final three with two people no one likes and sure I can win, but like it felt like he was pretty content. Like he never tried to like he never had the confessional where he's like, well, I gotta do you know everyone
Screw
wants
these
to vote for
guys.
this person but like I haven't done anything yet, so like I'm gonna
Yeah,
try to pitch some crazy idea just because like I feel like I gotta do something. Like he never had one of those that I feel like everyone in his position usually ends up giving at least one of those. Like I don't know, I got to do something. Or again, like the fire making has to do like a I don't know, I didn't I barely won anything. I don't feel like I took anyone out, so to speak, or whatever. But yeah, he's great. I'm sorry I missed your performance in Chicago. I will go to the next one, Ben. And now on to the 5-3 split. Kenzie, Charlie, who did you think was going to win before they actually voted? Who would you have voted for? And what were your thoughts in general on the 5-3 win in Kenzie's favor and the kind of reasoning behind how she got votes versus Charlie got votes?
sure. So I think both of them did really well. Like both of them had a really good final tribal. I think Hunter was right that Charlie did step off the gas a little bit. Um, Either he didn't want to go too hard, or I'm not sure what it was, but it was almost like there's a little bit of a disconnect that we saw. Um, I understand why he wouldn't have wanted to like really push that the Maria vote was his, because if it's still that fresh and like you saw how she went out at Final Five, you don't want to kind of antagonize at that point. Now, ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered because she voted for Kenzie, but I think that he did kind of reserve himself a little bit where Kenzie was just like putting it all out there. She wasn't being mean, she wasn't being unkind, she wasn't putting down Charlie's game. And that was one of the things too. Neither of them like discredited the other's game. They were both fully on board with like this is how I played. And I think Brian Cohen tweeted and he said it best of many things can be true from this season. Kenzie is a deserving winner. Charlie would have also been a deserving winner. Maria and Q can vote however they feel like, although I do not necessarily like the criteria that Maria and Q use to vote. Um, and I think that sums it up. I understand. I don't have a vote in this. I felt that Charlie played a superior game based on what I would vote for as as a jury member, just based on the gameplay aspect of it. Whereas Q's got to vote to give somebody $1 million, so he can ask whatever question he wants. That's going to validate it for him and who he wants to vote for. The thing that sort of rubbed me the wrong way, and again, it's not my decision to make, is that Maria has sort of said that it was like the fire in her eyes, like that drive. She could see herself in Maria and Kenzie, and that all of that makes sense. Like all of it's totally valid. I think that a large part of it is whether it was accurate or whether it was the edit that she got that from Q's question. Um, Whereas I can see how Maria would look at Kenzie and say, I can absolutely see myself in Kenzie, and I can see how she played better than me in aspects where I didn't. But the way that it went down, it almost felt like Maria was invalidating her own game because her and Charlie played such a similar game. So by voting for Kenzie, you're sort of not voting for yourself.
Hmm. I'm trying to pull up who voted for who because I forget who the three that voted for
I want to say it was
Charlie.
Hunter,
It's got to be in Survivor Wiki somewhere here,
yeah,
right?
Hunter, Liz, and there were three
Hmm.
Nami. I know that much. Was it Venus?
I am having a tough time figuring out how and where Survivor Wiki would have that listed. Um,
Probably just on the last episode.
yeah. um, no, 5-3 vote. Uh, well, this is great audio
This
content
is
for
why
all
this is why
of
we normally
you.
write notes.
Yeah, this is why we write notes, and yeah, I'm just not going to be able to find it. But yeah, so that was all well said, and Brian's tweet was accurate. This
Oh,
is a situation. Oh, go ahead. Did you
sorry,
find
I
it?
forgot the last point. Number 5 on that list was Liz would have won unanimously.
Yes. Uh, and well, unanimously would have been strong, but where, how is this possible? Hunter, Soda, and
Liz was one of
this
them, so if it was
three of the
Soda,
jury
then
members, Hunter, Soda, and
those would have been your
Liz,
three.
voted for Charlie. Hunter, Soda, and Liz voted for Charlie. Okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Okay. I
Great.
knew it was three
So yeah,
Nami, but I couldn't remember the third.
yeah, and so yes, it is a situation where, and before I say everything else, Kenzie is a absolutely deserving winner, and this is, I'm a big sports fan and basketball in particular, and this is a common debate, especially in recent years of the NBA. Like when there's an MVP award in sports, there is many years where there is 5 people who had an MVP season, and it gets weird when you have to like almost talk down about 3 people that like in any given year could have won an MVP, but there was 5 of you deserving this year. And we had to pick the best of the 5 or whatever. And some
Yeah.
years there's no one and someone wins an MVP and you're like, I don't know. Like you wouldn't have won in any other year, you know? And there's definitely been survivor winners where I'm like, I don't know that you would win on almost any other season. You got just the right kind of weak final 3 or whatever. And you have most seasons like this where Kenzie absolutely played a winning game and
Mm-hmm.
deserves to win. Absolutely zero chance I'm voting for her. I would have voted for Charlie. I was shocked. And that is because I think for my personal like flavor of like what I think is playing the game really well, I think Charlie's the best player in the entire new era, hands
Yeah.
down. I thought, and this is where I would have loved to see the whole final tribal. We see him when he's preparing use the analogy that perfectly explained what I thought, why I think he's the best player in the new era that I've seen. Of his goal the entire time was, I have to have an open door, positive
Yes.
relationship with every person out here, so that at any given point, every single person on the island is willing to work with me. And if a idea comes their way, if a vote stirs up, they're going to bring me in because our door is open and we have a positive relationship. And I'm going to try to maintain that at all costs with every person. And
Yeah.
he did it. He actually did do, at every moment all the way through the game, every single person out there, if you would have been asked in confessional, do you want to work with or against Charlie, or do you not care? They would say, I would work with Charlie right now.
Yeah.
I've got a good thing going with Charlie. I think we could work together. And that's a masterclass to me in like social political strategy and just building that capital, and like how every conversation he had was so perfect, and how he handled every conversation. And just like, he was thinking steps ahead every single time. And I was just blown away by how good of a game he played. And he says that, sums that up with the open doors thing when he's practicing on the beach. And then when they get to give their final remarks is the first time we hear him
Yeah.
say it at final tribal council. And so I wonder if if that was like I never even like kind of gave it the framing or the explanation that I should have wanted to do this whole time, and like, shit, now it's my like last words, or if we just didn't get to see some of that. But it ultimately just ended up coming down to, yes, they there was 5 people that chose the person who everyone loves and is great
Hmm.
friends with and played the amazing, just purely social game, versus the guy who, and it wasn't a former cast member, it was I don't want to say a random person, but a regular person like you or I on Twitter that I had seen say, basically, Charlie went into the final tribal council and his only mistake was he read the room of, they wanted to hear the clinical,
Yeah.
how good at the game I am. And Kenzie rightfully read the room of, they want to hear personality and why they're going to feel good about giving me this money, and still deserving, and I played a good
Yep.
game, but like, they want emotion. And Charlie went kind of clinical with it, and I thought that really summed it up. But I too am like, Q gets asked whatever he wants. Certainly he's far from the first person that would base a decision
No.
on like, who do I think just like this money impacts. And
Yep.
again, because I think Kenzie is a deserving winner, I'm fine with him splitting between 2 deserving winners. Like,
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think it's gonna impact this person, and I was, compelled by her story. Great. If this was a situation where I was like, it was someone else that I was like, that person has no chance, like they should not have won. And it was just like, I've worked really hard, and like, this money would go a long ways. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. But like, she had the, you're a deserving winner. So great. I'm
Yeah.
fine with it being a tiebreaker. I wouldn't have voted for it. It definitely swayed the tribal. But again, that tribal was leaning much more emotion, personality, story than they were clinical gameplay. And I think if Charlie made any mistake the whole season, it was just not maybe reading the room, because he, again, had those amazing relationships with everyone. He's charming. He definitely could have been a little more
Hmm.
kind of schmoozy, charming, playing himself up, playing more that emotional personality side of things. But yeah, I think Charlie's the best player in the entire new era to me. I need to go back, and Marianne, her final tribal just sticks out so much,
Yeah.
of like how badass it was of her pulling out the idol and everything. And its season's been a while. And then D last season I thought was spectacular. But I think Charlie's so I was kind of shocked, because I was like, in my mind, that's the best player of the new era, and he played a flawless game. And that's just because it lined up with what I think of as
Yep.
the best type of way to play the game. And so yeah, it was shocking, and I definitely wish that they would stop the immediate after show, because that was
That was
excruciating.
painful,
And I
man.
cannot believe how well he handled himself, and
He
that the first
was.
thing out of
Yeah.
his mouth is Kenzie deserved to win,
Hmm.
and don't anyone say anything differently, is just ultimate class. Because that is true, but he definitely does not need to have to say that in that moment or
Yeah.
anything. He doesn't need to have to say anything or have a camera on him or anything. They also shouldn't give them alcohol. I'm just like, dude, I would chug that drink if I was you too, but also like, you've barely had any food for a long time. Like, I don't think this is going to be a good
This will
thing
not end well.
for you.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like, I mean, here's the thing. Last week, we were talking about it. Who is the ideal top tier final three? Maria, Charlie, Kenzie. They all played different games, but they all played great games.
And we were wrong because Liz needed, because it should have
Liz
been
also
Liz.
needed to be there.
Yeah.
The but the other thing too, right? Like Charlie had Maria, who he anticipated that vote, and because of that, he sort of miscalculated a little bit there too. And like that's no disrespect to her. That's just simply he anticipated her vote and didn't get it. But Ben was also there.
Because of course he did, you know,
Yeah.
which yeah,
Well,
like
yeah, and that
yeah,
makes sense.
it's that
Like,
thing again. What we said started this whole thing with our PSA of like,
yeah,
it's not, we're not doing it in a mean way, but like, of course, a fucking course, Charlie was like, wait, Maria didn't. What do you
yeah.
mean Maria didn't vote for me? Like, of course,
Kenzie was as shocked that Maria voted for her that Charlie was that Maria didn't vote for him. And I think that for Charlie, Maria was on the jury, Ben was sitting beside him.
Yeah.
Those are the two people who have seen his game from the jump. But because Siga was mostly in the middle, we never really saw them. Because even when we actually saw Jem get her idol, we backtracked 4 days to do it. She had found it on day 2, but we didn't see it until day 6. So there was much less Siga to be seen, whereas both Q and Tiff were with Kenzie from the beginning on Yanu, where it was not all sunshine and rainbows, and all the way through the game. So you've got two people who have seen your game from beginning to end, plus you've got other people who are aware that even that early in the game, Banu told Ben and Liz that she was going to dominate because her social game was on point and through the roof. And they both went back and immediately told their tribes. So from pre-merge, they knew how strong of a social player Kenzie was. And I think that just kind of percolated all the way through the season. And I think that Banu inadvertently gave Kenzie a vote at Final Tribal.
Yeah, it's what we said about Liz. Like, it does come back to,
Yeah,
they kind of like, once you have an idea about someone in your head on the island, it sometimes just doesn't change regardless of actual evidence or more evidence coming out. It's just like, well, that's, you know, it's a complicated thing. It happens really fast. Once we kind of just have this person's this in my head
yep.
for fair or foul, that's kind of what they have in their head. And they definitely did all have in their head. She's a social threat. But is my last point of the thing that is the most, is not, it doesn't make the Maria vote the most shocking, but the part I keep coming back to that I have to say, and again, I think the world of Maria, and God dang it, I really thought I was going to get my winner
I
pick
was
right.
so sure you were going
so
to.
So in the bag. But the thing that has to be said is Maria never targeted Kenzie. Never once said Kenzie is the threat, which means to me you have to put together all of the things. And that is, Maria thought she had played the best game.
Yep.
She was the biggest threat. And her main concern was, I've done this with Charlie and we've played the same thing, and I've got to get Charlie out of here. And at no point did we ever hear, and again, we barely saw, we barely see, percentage of what happens. Maybe she had many conversations about Kenzie being a threat, but we never see her reference Kenzie as a threat.
Right.
And then she goes out and eventually says with her vote, Kenzie is played better and is the winner over Charlie, which is why the main reason it doesn't compute for me, because that means you're saying Kenzie was a much better player than you. Like, what would Kenzie should have been a threat at some point, mentioned as your big threat, if you were saying the person you played the same kind of ish game as Charlie, you're voting for her over him. You're voting for her over yourself too.
Yeah, exactly.
To some degree. And so that's, as much as anything, why it didn't compute for me. But you know what? It's her vote. And that's why, as Q said, that's why I put in my audition tape, man. I want to cast one of those votes someday too. But Kenzie's amazing. She is one.
Totally.
We will likely not be seeing her back on season 50 or otherwise, because she does not deservedly does not seem to be enjoying the post-show experience very much because some crazy weirdos out there are doing some crazy weird things that they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, any other final words on the tribal council other than we don't have to discuss? We both are clearly on the record of like, don't do the after show immediately after, or
Yeah, don't do
let
the
let
after
the
show.
second place winner like exit stage left for 30 minutes,
Yep.
and just do like the winner, like an interview with the winner, other
Then bring
folks
everyone in.
leave, and then 30 minutes later you bring back in Ben, you come in first,
Yep.
and then 30 minutes later, now Charlie, you come in and talk to you, something, anything, because it just
It's
seems so
brutal, man.
brutal.
Yeah, and it's
It's the second season in a row. It's like this one, obviously, even more so, but
yeah,
obviously, last season with Austin was similar thing of like, God, it just sucks. It would suck to have to sit there. And then I guess the other thing we should quickly point out, in whether by her own volition or not, no Sia money either. Because I
no.
the last thing in my head was like, oh well, I know he's a Taylor Swift guy, but like Sia's gonna hook Charlie up. It'll be all right. Sia's
I
got
hope
50
Taylor
grand
Swift
for
hooks him
Charlie
up.
or whatever. Dude, Taylor Swift is never gonna know that any of this ever happened.
She
So
better.
no, she won't. There's
She
no
will.
way.
We'll
This
tell
this
her.
is not on her radar. Her team does not bother her with. There's a guy on Survivor who you would love and is a fan, and you should give him money. It's not going to happen. Also, but I don't. I think the show, because there was lots of discussion online of like, did the show tell Sia you don't get to do this anymore? Did Sia actually, her like tweet or comment she made about it was like she stopped watching the season a few episodes in, which I was
Yeah.
like, oh, so you also disregard the first 4 episodes of season 46, just like me, because they didn't happen in my book. But yeah, did Banu win Kenzie a million and cost Charlie, Ben,
A million
Maria,
hearts.
some amalgamation of $100,000?
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like I mean, props to her. I mean, she's given out way more than $1 million.
Yeah, you don't have to keep giving out
You don't have
money
to
because you
keep
did
giving
it a
out
couple of
money just
times.
because you've done it a
Damn
couple
sure.
times. You like some people. Q has said that he's giving out money. I'll see what happens there.
Well, and he's said it multiple times, because the first time I was like, obviously, is a joke. As
Yeah,
he does a lot of jokes in his tweets or whatever,
sure
and I was
does.
like, no. But one, Q is mighty successful.
Hmm.
Just and for those who
It's the
are not aware,
second biggest realtor
the
with Remax in the U.S.
yeah, which Remax is the biggest realty
Yeah,
company in the U.S. And so that's not nothing. That is a huge something. So maybe he does just have 20 grand hanging out that he's going to give away.
maybe.
He is climbing up the cameo charts, but I don't know that that's actually real. That I think that might have been a joke. But
Me too, but he keeps
yeah,
saying it, so we'll see what happens. Honestly, like I think that 46 I would love to see this game played again with the same cast. Like I would love to see how it shakes out differently. This is one of those casts that I would love to see play again, like just the entire cast. Just do it again, like reshuffle the deck and see how it shakes out. Now, obviously, not going to happen. Like they're not going to burn an entire season on bringing back an entire cast, but it's one that I think you play this game a couple of different times with a couple of different assortments of three tribes, and you come out with a different outcome. Like there's some really high level players in season 46.
yeah. I mean, they definitely would never do it, but
No.
I would also be fascinated because they would also have to be confident going in.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't have to do it back to back, but like it would be unbelievable to be like, and now this cast is gonna, you're all starting over, and we're gonna do it again and see what happens the second time. Um, yeah, that would be fascinating. Definitely never gonna happen, but
Nope.
yeah. If you take away the first 4 episodes, that I just really had a tough time with the not him as a person, but the Banu experience that was the first
Yes.
4 episodes. I did not wasn't super entertained or having a great time watching. So take those 4 episodes off, and this is my favorite season of the new era, probably. With those 4 episodes on there, this one it's tough. Where I would go for my favorite, because they all have, the couple I would consider all have like something similar
Yeah.
hanging over it. But 42 and 3 kind of stand out for sure. But I just end up I like a lot of the people that seems like other people don't like. I've been seeing some tier list of like basically all of the contestants from
Oh
the
yeah.
new era, and I couldn't have, every time I like open one and I'm like, oh damn, so you hate all the people that I liked the most, man. Oh, okay, good thing I wasn't talking publicly about this show until last season and this season when I guess I got my opinions more correct. I don't know.
I mean, look, I'm still wearing my Jess shirt. I can't discount the first couple of episodes because we've got Jelinski and Jess both in that
Yeah,
assortment.
Jelinski has had 10 times a better run than he ever could have wildly dreamed about or deserved. And I tip my hat to him and say, good job. You did it. This is amazing. Your Twitter performance throughout the season was fantastic. I'm sorry, buddy, but they if they call you for season 50, they're using up a spot that should go to someone else.
I
You
don't
you got
necessarily.
so much more out of this than you ever should have, and it's a testament to you that you did
Yeah,
fantastic work.
I don't want to see him on
Goodbye.
season 50. I do want to see him again. Season 50, like season 50, I don't even know what's happening, but I want like
Only 40. I would have been all in for it on 47,
yeah,
and I
40
also would be
several
all
should have been a thing.
yeah, if they would have just been like, you know what, and from now on, first boot, you're on the next season. That's a new thing. That first out, you go to the next season. I would have been all for it.
That would actually
But
be
yeah,
brilliant. Like I would like that dynamic.
yeah. All right. So we've already started talking about the season as a whole. So why don't we take a quick break so I can fill my water glass, and then we'll hand out some awards for the entire season. Let's hand out some hardware, some big trophies. Again, no episode awards for the finale, just full season awards. We are going to do Confessional King or Queen of the Season, aka kind of best quote, but really best talker. We're going to do moments. We're going to do best and worst gameplay. Who's on the DVD? Very important question in
Yes.
Survivor that I really enjoy. Who we won on season 50, and then, of course, the season MVP award. Let's start with Confessional King or Queen of the Season. And can you remind me? I asked you this early in this season, I believe, but over in Challenge World, I call this the Dan Renzi Confessional King or Queen of the Season because he was the first ever Confessional King of the Challenge way back on season 4. Is there any super old school Survivor player you could think of that was like really known for just being super entertaining talker and whatnot that we could name this after?
I mean, the Tyson Apostle Confessional King.
What season was Tocantins?
18.
It's kind of old enough, I guess. Out of almost 50. Okay, we can name. Was he great in confessionals
He was
though, or was
fantastic
he
in
just
confessionals
okay?
consistently.
Well,
Both
obviously, I love Tyson. So
confessionals and in
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 person,
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which definitely factors into this as well. All right, well, we'll go with the Tyson Apostle, Confessional King or Queen of the season, and I'm going to hold us both here for all of these awards to 2 or 3 at most nominees, and then pick your winner. And we can give us, in this case, give a small sample, a quote or two of their work if we so choose, or if you just want to slide in your favorite quote of the season or whatnot. So I'll let you go first. Who were you thinking for Confessional King or Queen of this season?
Thus far, I have followed the rules. I have 3. We've got Liz, with the standout being "What the heck, you hoe bags." We've got Ben, with obviously anything that Ben says is high level, and the Confessional King, canceller of Christmas, identifier of big mistakes.
Yeah, why did I say we needed to name this anything but
The Confessional,
the what's his full name? What's his last name?
Quintavious
Yeah, his
Burdette.
Burdette.
Is it?
Yeah, Q Burdette, the Quintavious Burdette Confessional King or Queen of the Season award. Sounds like you were about to say goes to Q for
Yeah,
you.
I have to. And honestly, it's not even either of those. It's the fact that, like, it's that confessional of him breaking down everyone's gameplay. And
The secret scene one?
yeah,
Yeah.
the one that wasn't
Yeah.
even in the episode. Like,
Yeah.
that alone.
Secret scenes will never make sense to me.
No,
I
me neither.
applaud them for putting something that I do want to watch every week in it, but then that one in particular
Yeah.
stands out as like, that makes me want to say, quote the great Liz, what the hell you hoe bags?
Yeah.
Like, how is this not in the episode for everyone to see?
But yeah, Q's my pick. Like, as much as Tevin started the season with the monologue, Q was our narrator.
And Tevin also, we didn't say, got to do second duty as the narrator, doing the
Yeah.
a portion of the like kind of the photo shoot, the magazine style photo shoot that the jury minus Liz got to do, which I was bummed that they like clearly did that before Liz got voted out and like Liz isn't in it. It's like, oh, that sucks. Um, but he got to do the narration of that. Yeah, Tevin early season had definitely 3-4 episodes in, I would have been like, it feels like there's no
Yep.
way this guy's not gonna get it. But yeah, we don't need to talk about anyone but Q, which is, it's just how monumentally great of a talker and entertainer he was on this season that we're not, I don't even need to bring up the other people that would have been strong candidates in a lot of seasons. My two favorites from Q, one very small, and we didn't even mention when it happened, but the episode he got voted out, he when he finds the idol all giddy, he's like, I got the juice now. And that's a reference to a couple different sports movies that I think he was making, um, or not. But I just if they were references, they were to two movies and quotes that I really enjoy, and just in general, that moment stands out to me of like how amazing, and I was fucking giddy as well in that moment of like, this is the best thing that could happen for the show is Q found an idol. And for the second episode, we have that feeling of like, the best thing that could have happened was Venus finds an idol and then somehow she gets voted out. And then the best thing that could happen is Q finds an idol and then he gets voted out with it.
Yep.
But then his other one, speaking of Venus getting voted out, we did give the quote of the week 2 weeks ago. Tribal went exactly as it should. They say you can see Venus from Earth, but we don't see Venus no more in this camp. Venus thought she could rally the troops and send me packing. Psh, you can cancel Christmas, girl. That will never happen. Obviously, cancel Christmas and Big Mistake will live on
Yes.
in challenged lore and infamy. Christmas got canceled, I think, in final count like 8 times
At
this season.
least.
So
Yep.
with children that are one right now, being born right now, don't get Christmas until they're 9 years old because of Q and everyone else, what they did to him on this season. So hats off, Q. We'll be talking about you a bunch more probably in this next category, which is favorite moment. I didn't call it best moment. I called it favorite. It can kind of be a little bit of both. I think for last season we did best moment. Typically for challenge seasons, I do like it's best or most iconic. It isn't favorite.
Yeah.
And I always try to frame it as if they did one of those bracket challenges where it was like the most, the biggest standout moments in the history of Survivor. Every season gets one moment that goes into the bracket. Which moment like would you pick is kind of a way I sometimes frame this, but I'm willing to be more subjective here and could be favorite. You can take it any way you want, really. What were you able to stick to three nominees here, or are you gonna kind of sidebar a bunch more in?
No, I only got 4. I did fairly well.
Which is more than 3, but I'll take it.
It's not several.
I like the confidence of I only did 4. Yeah,
Yep.
I did correct. I correctly did it. Okay.
Ben
So
and Charlie's
yeah.
song's title off, because obviously, and Charlie's rice negotiation from the very bottom of the poll in the challenge, when he was talking to Jeff, and he's like, "I've got you right where I want you. This is the negotiation right here." Also, the montage of people voting at the tribal council where Q said that he wanted to be voted out, and it was multiple variations of "This is stupid." Um,
I forgot about that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. The first time he wanted, or no.
no, it was when Tevin got voted out, and like he had this whole
Yeah.
big thing about how like vote me out.
Yeah. I was reminded when I went back through my notes for every episode to pull nominees for these awards that
Yeah,
I had already forgotten that Q tried to get voted out for a different time earlier
yeah.
in the season. And it also talked about it like 1 or 2 other times.
I believe that was
Oh
when
god.
the best part of that was it was Kenzie the day before had been talking to Tiff and
To,
was like the next time he's just going to tell us to vote for him, and then he actually did.
yeah.
And then the final one is the hide and seek, and also the quote of Hunter's probably somewhere stupid.
And which of those is your winner?
I mean, it has to be the montage of people like after that whole Q tribal. Like that is one of the iconic moments of this season, and just everybody. It also gave me my favorite Ben quote of "I do not care for the shenanigans."
Yeah, that's definitely that's one. It would have to be. I mean, this season would have multiple that would go into the greatest moment bracket
Yeah.
probably, and that is certainly way up there. Although deriding you, I have five at least that I'm going to mention here. So jokes on me. All spicy Jeff moments. I
Yes.
just enjoyed that Jeff was a little spicy this season again. The standout maybe of all of them was the first one when he said, "And those people are called and then they all said losers, and he was like, "I thought you were going to say Yanu." It's like, God damn, that's hilarious and just great. The day 14 immunity challenge, which is the balancing
Mhm.
on the triangles on water,
Yes.
which included both a great game that was played in the calmest water ever,
Yes.
opposite of what we had seen before. It included Q's alphabet game that both had Q's brilliance as an entertainer on this season wrapped with Ben's indifference towards Q, Liz's indifference towards Q, and Charlie's really good camera work where he was the one that was the final nail of like, I actually know what I'm doing and I'm going to purposely get it wrong to get a rise out of you. All of that. uh there was the several minute was the first, I think, reference to several and Jelinski. There was the what's up Jeff from Tim and him being like, no, as a black person that means I'm asking you what time it is, like, come on. And then it ended up being a consequential battle with two winners. So that entire immunity challenge was just fantastic and had a lot of elements from the season in it. Hide and seek, certainly, and just the fact that Q and Venus took it so, Q and Venus telling us all the reasons why they were learning everything they needed to know to win the game from hide and seek. Liz's Applebee's meltdown, of course, is, I think, actually would be, if only one moment went into a bracket of best Survivor, most iconic Survivor moments, I think it might actually be Liz's meltdown from the
It will
Applebee's
live
meltdown
on.
from this season. It will live on big time. To those, it pierced well outside of Survivor.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
people know there was a lady that freaked out about Applebee's on Survivor, which is an unfair read. But when you don't know and you just
Oh,
see the clip, of course, you're like, dude, there was some lady freaking out about Applebee's on Survivor.
thank you for framing it just that way because it just reminded me of something. I was talking to somebody at work and they were doing a course on emotional intelligence, and that was the clip that they showed. They showed the clip of Liz and the Applebee's "I'm pissed" moment in a course about emotional intelligence.
It'll live on in many ways forever, probably out of context incorrectly,
I
but
did explain the
it's so
context
great.
because he was
Okay.
like, because I was talking about Survivor and he was like, I watched something about Survivor in a course that I'm doing. And I was like, yeah,
That's
so here's
amazing.
some backstory on that.
And then I also had when Kenzie told the final six who each of them were in the family and
Charlie was a
concluded with
dog.
Charlie as the dog, which I just felt like was actually maybe when she beat Charlie at Final Tribal Council, was two tribal councils earlier, when she put in everyone's mind that I'm the center of this family that everyone likes, and everyone else is slightly negative, including Charlie is like our little golden retriever dog that just listens to us. So she was putting in that secret work all along.
She was.
You give it to which moment did you say again?
Uh,
The
the
Q
Q
voting. Yeah,
montage, yada yada.
I give it to Liz's Applebee's meltdown. They both are very Q heavy, Q related. So those are our favorite moments of the season, and hide and seek was a very near second to me as well.
Yes.
Let's talk gameplay. Let's talk best gameplay, which was the only one of these awards that I did not put notes in advance. So you're gonna go first here while I think, and maybe I'll just crib one of your answers. But
Perfect.
when we're talking singular move, not
Hmm.
over, and obviously we'd be like Kenzie and Charlie played the best game, or Maria maybe, or whatever. Like, not that singular standout move or moment or conversation or something where you're like, that was a 12 out of 10 great Survivor move in the game. What was some of the best moves you remember?
So I will go Tevin understanding that Soda was playing a better social game than him based off of her saying that like she was comfortable with Charlie, and him just realizing that and realizing that he had to get her out because she was taking up space where he needed to be. Also, Charlie and Maria, the moment where they realize that they have to take each other out and that neither can necessarily beat the other, and the only way to do it is to send one of them to the jury. Best gameplay as well. All of the idol blindsides. We've not seen that before, and as much as people on the internet have said that it's because of poor gameplay on the idol holders, I feel that it is more so high level gameplay on the people who are telling them that they're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, it's a moment from really early on, and it's something that has stuck with me. And another reason why I think that Maria is an absolutely brilliant player, needs to play again, and I hope that all of the negativity hasn't dissuaded her from playing again. Although I totally understand if it has. Um, when she had her extra vote, and she used different handwriting on both of the votes to vote for Gem, so that they weren't both tracked back to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was brilliant. Very, very smart. And were those all your nominees?
Those are all my nominees.
Do you want to make your pick, or would you like me to share my nominees and then we pick after?
I will say, you know what? I'm gonna give it to Maria on the handwriting. It's something that's so simple, but it's something that just shows how intensely she was playing that early in the game.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That definitely is worthwhile to be nominated. I uh a few random ones that come to mind is painful as the blunder that came right after it. Venus's ability to hide the idol for the first little bit of time in her interaction and looking for the idol with Kenzie
Yep.
was really brilliantly done. And then she just completely blundered it in the next conversation. But one amazing piece, and then unfortunately a game costing piece immediately followed. So it kind of rules it out from contention of actually winning. Um, and then it's crazy, but I don't know. Q trying to get himself voted out. I think there was a rhyme and reason to it the whole time. I think he knew it wasn't going to happen, and I don't know. I just think it's fantastic. So I want to nominate it for the best gameplay because it just makes so little sense that it seems like it's just I'm just not able to none of us are able to comprehend it or
No, I
smart
think he
enough.
did it to protect Tiff, and I still don't know how that protected Tiff, but
Yeah. And then it just stinks that there isn't like I can't point to the specific move Charlie did, but to my point earlier of like why I think he's the best player I've seen in the new era of just every conversation he had, I just felt like he did pitch perfect exactly what he should have been doing and was able to like play the game while also building relationships and doing just personal stuff on the side. But yeah, this is mostly just me rambling because I didn't do my homework and I don't know who I want to give this award to. So I'm going to abstain for the time being, and we're going to go with your choice as the sole winner for now. And if I decide later on, I will update the record books
perfect.
with my winner. I did do my homework on worst gameplay though,
Yes.
so
You
I'll
go
go
first
first
on that
here.
one.
Again, singular move here, not overall player, not trying to be mean or bash the player or anything. Just singular move that was clearly not a good idea. Not a good didn't help anyone out here. Um, three nominees for me. Technically five because one of them is a group nominee. First one, Hunter's combination of you could say Hunter and Hunted when Jeff says
Yes.
Predator and Prey, with him hanging upside down after the one win. He obviously lost the one where he said the Hunter Hunted thing, but just the dash of like you are the best at the games here, but you're not like dominating to it. Like if you would not add these little extra moments of flair, I don't think everyone would be as nervous. You're kind of raising from like he's the best one here to like he's going to beat all of us every time when like that doesn't seem to be true, and that actually really hurt his game I think
Yeah.
otherwise. So that's one. Second one, the rock paper scissors. Maria
Mm-hmm.
his her the entire process that ended up with Q going to reward with her and not Liz. Um, and not that it was Q and not Liz, but just how we ended up
Yeah.
there and the explanation given, followed by the rock paper scissors, followed by the 10 to 15 minutes or whatever, however long it actually went on. All of that really tanked. I feel like her
Mm-hmm.
season because it tanked. It not only I mean, she still would have been the top threat. Probably nothing else really changes, but how people acted towards her and thought about her changes, and that ultimately changes your ability to maybe convince them to do something else at any point after that. So that was really, really bad, I think. And then, of course, worst gameplay, we have to mention six people left the game with an idol, or five people left the game
Five
with an
people.
idol. For one was
Well,
medivac, so it doesn't really
yeah.
count.
He didn't have the
Four,
idol. He had the clue.
or well, yeah, I had the clue.
But
So
Gem left.
four, no, five people voted out with an idol. I thought four in a row.
Yeah.
Gem, Tiff, Hunter, Venus, Q. Yeah. So of those five that were voted out with an idol in their pocket, I'm not holding the same against. I'm not really holding it against Gem and Tiff. Hunter, Venus, and Q, all to me, again, from our edited version we're seeing and all of our knowledge as the viewers versus being there playing, felt like, how in the world are you not playing your idol right now? Both from a, like, you gotta be reading the room that you're about to get voted out. Also, it's late in the in Q and Venus, especially, like, it's late
Yeah.
in the game. There's only one more vote you could even use this for. So those three, I think, have to represent this season of historic idols leaving in people's pockets. And again, Hunter's the one kind of on the line. Venus and Q are the two real to me that I'm like, it's hard not to be critical of you not playing it there. Hunter's kind of in the middle. Tiff and Gem were plenty early enough where I'm like, yeah, you got tricked and you got blindsided. Like, I get it. I'm not like, how in the hell did you not play that? So those are my nominees. Do you have any other standout bonehead moves that come to mind?
Not really. I mean, Venus's conversation with Charlie was not swift.
Oh yeah, I guess
but
I already mentioned that during
you had
best
already
gameplay.
mentioned it.
Somehow I tried to mention Venus's conversation with Charlie and Q trying to get himself voted out. I mentioned them both in best gameplay,
Yes, you
not
did.
worst. I'm gonna be really good at this game if they let me on.
Yeah,
the show.
totally.
I'm telling you right now.
I mean, I don't know that anything. I did write all of the idol blindsides because really, like, even Tiff, like, that string of four, like, everybody should have known, or at least get some. And I say that, like, from this side of the
Again,
screen.
our view
Like,
is just so much different.
yeah,
But
and, like, I know that because Q even said if he would have even heard a whisper of his name, then he would have played it. But everybody was all in on Charlie because he was wide open. And that's the other thing too, is like, you only need it if you can make it through that vote without it, then you guarantee yourself that much further. And I understand the duality of that, but all of the idle blindsides, I still think it comes down to rock, paper, scissors, which is funny because we've got rock, paper, scissors and hide and seek in our awards section for a game played by adults.
Season was a bunch of children being wildly entertaining. Yeah.
It's just a bad read more than anything else. Like, if you were to say, Q's my number one, Charlie's...
It's the only one that I would use the word inexplicable with. Like, it's just like, from our vantage point, it can seem wild and crazy that Q or Venus doesn't play an idol, or that just five people don't in general. But, like, it's the only one that's just truly unforced. Like, what do you like? Where, how did you get so in your head in that moment, panicked, hate the decision, and that's like what came out of your mouth? And from a player who is that good and was the best player at that moment, or regarded as such, to have that obvious of a blunder. I think that's the winner. I think we appropriately labeled, though, the season, the kind of story of the season. The idols are one of the two or three stories of the season for sure, but single worst gameplay, I think, was the way in which Maria ended up taking Q over Liz. Now for the most fun question that's asked most years, and was definitely going around the social media: who's on the DVD? Tony, back in the day, obviously physical media used to be cool, and still is to some folks like me.
And me.
But they used to make DVDs of this show, and on the DVDs, it would always be six people on the cover. And so it's fun to play who's on the DVD. If they made a DVD of season 46, who would be the six people that have to be on the cover for you? Essentially define the season 46.
So I would say Q, Charlie, Kenzie, Maria, Liz, Hunter, but then, like, a faded, like, ghost type image of Jelinski in the background.
What about instead of Jelinski's ghost there, it's just the broken hourglass
Yes,
is like at the bottom of it. I think that
I'll
I could
concede.
allow that.
Yeah,
I could allow that.
that's like
Um,
his genie lamp.
yeah, and that would get people excited if they hadn't seen that were upset about the role that the timers have played in the past. um well, we had 5 of the 6 the same. I also, and I think the 5 we had the same are pretty inarguable, that Charlie, Maria, Kenzie, Q, and Liz have to kind of be on. And obviously, I don't know what the stats would be behind the people on the DVs. Obviously, they're probably usually from the final 6 or 7 people a lot of
Probably.
times that
Yeah.
are on the show, because we end up knowing them the most and on the most episodes. But I had Tevin over Hunter.
That's fair.
I think, and that was a tough one. Obviously, I wanted to put Venus on this really badly, but I just couldn't cut Liz, and
Same.
so it was really Tevin, Venus, Hunter, and even almost even Soda. But Tevin, Hunter, Venus, probably even really Tevin and Venus. Probably they beat Hunter in my mind for the spot, or like maybe I'm making them play rock paper scissors for the 6th spot
I will
on
I
the
will
cover.
concede. I will trade Hunter for Tevin because it was like a coin flip for me.
I think actually I ended up picking Tevin over Venus because it was 3 guy, 3 girl,
Yeah.
which I don't know if they care about that or did that in the past or whatever, but I think that was how I realized and broke my own personal tie on this thing that obviously doesn't matter at all because these DVDs don't exist, and if they did, I wouldn't get to pick who's on them. But yeah, those Charlie, Maria, Kenzie, Q, for sure, 1,000%, if these DVDs existed,
Yeah.
are
And
on
Liz.
there. And I think Liz is probably 100% lock on there, but maybe not. Um, I could see a world where it was Tevin and Venus and Liz wasn't, and people like us would be like, "You got to be kidding me! It should be Liz and only Liz."
Yep.
But yeah,
Or
okay.
they say it's Liz and it's actually a picture of Mariah.
Someone, was it someone from this season? Oh, never mind. There was another random Twitter thing I was going to try to remember that had to do with Liz and Mariah, and a child of their. Did they try to say Kenzie was like the third sister or something? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't know that matches up.
There
But it
was
was a
one.
specific outfit and hairdo that Kenzie did, where I think they tried to put that together, and was like, oh, it
Yes.
doesn't
There
work.
was one where it was like a collection of photos of Liz, and it was like I think it said something like, here it is. Uh Liz the rumored billionaire, and it was 5 shots of Liz and then 1 shot of Mariah.
Just to see who noticed.
Yeah.
All right, that's our DVDs. Who do you want on season 50? And I'm putting
I
absolute
saw
maximum
it.
of
I saw
3,
it. I got three.
because in my mind,
Three from
I
each.
think we said this before, if season 50 was only new era players, which I think it should be, I think that would be more interesting
Yeah.
to me, probably. Um, that would mean if there was 9 seasons to pick from, or 8 or whatever, that 2 each if they're fair. I don't think it would be exactly like that, so I think every season would probably at least have one person, and the most they would maybe take from a season is 3. It would be great if that was not true and they were like, we can take 5 from the season, because they should take 5 from this season, or at least extend 5 invites, whether they want to do them or not.
Yep.
And that's not even including Kenzie, because I just took her off because I don't think that's happening.
Nope.
So it sounded like it was going to be hard for you to pick 3. It was
No,
for
I
me.
stuck to
Were
my
you able to do
3.
it?
I did what I.
Okay.
It helped that the bonus question also allowed me to choose different people. Um, so my 3 for season 50: Charlie, Maria, and Tevin.
Charlie, Maria, and Tevin.
Yeah,
Okay. Interesting.
it was
And
tough.
what was the deciding factor between those you cut and those 3, do you think?
So I think that Tevin could have done much better if it wasn't for the chaos of that particular tribal council, um, where he got sent home, and that was the one with Q as well, saying that he was quitting.
Yeah.
But I want to see. And it's not that I feel like there's going to be animosity between Charlie and Maria. I want to see them both play again because they're both really good players, and I think if we are trying to pick sort of the 3 who can represent season 46, that Tevin and Charlie and Maria would do a good job. I
Mhm.
feel like I feel like if you pick somebody like Hunter or something like that, like he would probably fare about as well as he did this time. No disrespect to Hunter, whereas
Mhm.
I feel like Tevin got cut down a little bit early,
Mhm.
and I could see him doing much better playing a second time.
Okay, those are all good arguments. I only had one pick because I couldn't pick after it, but I knew one, and that's Q, or I'm not going to watch. I'm not watching season 50 if Q's not on it. This is the only pick. He is the clear representative of this chaotic, ridiculous, amazing season. He embodies it. We'll talk MVP in a minute, but I think you probably know where I'm leaning there too. But yeah, I literally wrote Q or I don't watch,
Fair?
which isn't true. I'm going to watch,
Yeah, I
but
know.
Q's got to be there for sure. More people need to interact with Q's gameplay. He needs to be given a chance to actually quit for real. All the things. And then I had Charlie, Venus, Tevin, and Liz were the four that I was like torn between. Your argument for Maria is obviously sound. I maybe kind of ruled her out of thinking maybe she wouldn't want to again,
Yeah,
but I would love if she did and, rose above the haters that suck. Um, Charlie's probably my second pick again. I think he's the best player, so I want the best player there. And then yeah, I just really can't pick between Venus and Tevin. Similar to the DVD of I'm dying for them to both play again and just to be entertained by both of them again, and Liz as well. So yeah, I hope they are willing to either do more than 18 people or we can have 4 or 5 people from a season and only one or none from some other seasons,
I would like to
whatever.
see a supersized season for 50. I would love to see them go back to two tribes for 50. And I would
Two
love to
tribes
see,
was still 18 most of the time though,
yeah,
right?
give or take.
Or
Yeah,
was it bigger? Yeah,
I
so
wouldn't
maybe
I wouldn't
two tribes of
mind.
10. Can we up it to 20
Yeah, it's
20
been done
people
before.
maybe?
Like they kind of bounced around a little bit for numbers. I would totally
Winners at
like.
War was 20.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the big round ones, 40, 50, and so on, you get to do 20 people at least to get a couple extra in there. Well, yeah. Q's got to be on it.
yeah.
Please, please, please. He also needs to be on Challenge USA 3, which is the bonus question you alluded to. Who do we want to see on the challenge? Because they might do Challenge USA 3. They probably are, maybe are doing Challenge USA
I would
3.
hope so.
So we would likely get another influx of 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever Survivor folks pending
To
coming into the
win,
challenge world. Yeah, it's coming. One of them will win if they do Challenge USA 3. Q again, obviously, we got to lean a little more athlete here, and so Q for every reason. Plus the fact that bringing another football player, we have a great track record of football players providing entertainment, whether they're epically losing or occasionally, rarely winning, but they have won before on the challenge. Venus, I probably want Venus in the challenge house. I said Tiff potentially. I think Tiff would be pretty good in the Challenge USA house for sure.
yep.
Hunter for sure. I would be interested. And then Tevin was a big maybe for me. I couldn't decide. Because there's part of me that thinks Tevin would absolutely love it, and there's part of me that thinks Tevin would absolutely hate it. And so I don't want him to do it if it would be something he would end up hating.
Right.
But I think he would be entertaining on any show, anything on our television, and I think he's got enough athletic prowess and plenty enough social prowess to be able to be a threat in that house and be able to compete at a good level. So Q, Tiff, Hunter for sure, Venus and Tevin. I would get excited if I saw them on the cast list for sure. But there are a little more questions for me.
So Q, Tiffany, and Hunter are on mine as well, in addition to both Maria and Tim, because
Yeah, Challenge USA Maria for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
like she's a tank. Like she's nothing. She
Yeah.
is not one to be messed with, and I think that Tim is the same. Like Tim was one of the more formidable guys early on in the game, so I would really like to see the two of them, especially in like a Challenge USA scenario.
Challenge USA won because yeah,
Yeah,
obviously the 2 seasons of Challenge USA were very different.
very different.
One was basically a flagship season with a couple new young Survivor folks, and
Yeah,
the other was an actual just obviously Maria would be far from the oldest person on Challenge USA 1. She'd be right, kind of in the
Yeah,
middle almost. There's plenty of folks in their 40s or even 50s, uh, and with all the comebacks in the All Stars world that then come over into Flagship now or USA or whatever. So, yeah, Maria is a good one to add to the list for sure. And Tim, I would have to think back. I hadn't thought about Tim in a long time, so
he was on
potentially.
Soda's Live. That it helped. Um,
Oh, nice.
because I watched
He's
Soda's
been
Live.
he's
Like,
been at all of Ben's concerts too. So,
yeah, it's true.
all right. Well, then last award, MVP, most valuable cast member. If you remove them from the season would lose the most. Biggest hit. I already said earlier, obviously it's Q for me. There's just no is again as we alluded to with there's two winners, and I said in sports there's often many people deserving of MVP honors. This is a season with multiple MVP caliber candidates for sure. I love you, Liz. I love you, Venus. I love you, Charlie. We never mentioned in the confessional king and queen, it's a different thing, which is why Charlie didn't come up, but Charlie's fourth wall breaks were
Yes,
revolutionary and
absolutely.
amazing, and most people, I'm going to cringe if they try to do that, and he nailed every single one of them. So shout out to you, but none of you stood any freaking chance because Q is my MVP of season 46. What say you, Tony?
I say Liz. Much
Oh,
much like you
I'll
say,
allow it.
much like you say, Q. Liz is the one for me that she brought so much to the season, and if you take her out of the season, you lose so much. So many different places you lose from Liz not being there, and both of them together. I think that they are very like understandably, I would give them co MVP, especially because of how they've interacted together on the show. Like, I think that they are both absolutely deserving. I will give an honorable mention to Ben just because, like, he's Ben.
Yeah, it's your guy. That's
Yeah,
your guy.
but 100% it was Q and Liz like neck and neck for season MVP.
All right. Well, they each get a trophy then. Fair enough. Obviously, I'm not going to argue against Liz, who I love dearly, and definitely want to see back. Yeah, it was an amazing season. Definitely, again, the huge turnaround after the first couple episodes where I was just not having a good time with it. Complete and utter turnaround to probably maybe my favorite of the new era, and we'll see if it stays that way. We obviously any quick parting thoughts on the trailer for 47. I will say of the couple big casting news, I was very pro a few, and I immediately one of them I did not. It made me the opposite of what's the opposite of excited?
Dread, existential
It
dread,
doesn't feel like it's dread though, just lack of interest, I guess.
indifference.
Any quick thoughts on the trailer we saw or for
It looks
47?
it looks darker. Like the logo looks much more piratey than in the past. And they also went right from the dark logo to bats flying around. So I'm interested to see whether that's just fluke
Is
or
it premiering on Halloween?
I hope so. It is the fall, but it'd probably be
Yeah,
September.
that's too late. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be way too
it'll
late,
be
I think.
September. I mean, one of the things that I will say, and it actually just by fluke while I was writing notes for tonight, Soda was doing a live and people were kind of popping in and out. And one of the things that Tevin said that was really interesting and I had not thought of, and Soda sort of echoed it, was it was it was hard as the jury to see who the power players were in the game or what anyone was independently doing because they used Q as a smokescreen so many times that it all looked like it was going to be Q. And then when it was somebody else, nobody really knew how that happened. So they were missing a lot of information when they were actually there at Tribal to see what was going on. And it's not like the blindsided person could really provide that much added insight when they left the game. So it was a lot harder to kind of build up that idea of who was doing well versus who wasn't as they got closer and closer to final
Mm.
tribal. And I never really thought about that because if you're at tribal and you're using Q as a smokescreen, then you're not going to be saying anything about anyone else. So you're not going to really know who sits where.
Yeah, that's interesting. That yeah, he's just he's just such an outsized force. He just,
Yeah.
changed everything ran through him somehow, some way. Um, yeah, 47 in the fall. I mean, it definitely was the most like bland trailer I feel
Yeah.
like we've
I
gotten
think
in
they're
a
still
while.
filming though. Because
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely not over or
no.
finished. It definitely all seemed like some early season footage because they all
Yeah.
seemed kind of clean too. It was like
Yeah.
these feel like it's the first day or two.
Well, and because like when you're listening to On Fire throughout this season, they were talking about how 47 they were still finishing up like the pre stuff, like the
Yeah,
pre-production stuff. And
yeah,
then I was actually shocked that we were getting a trailer for 47 because listening to On Fire all through the season, they were talking about how they were still ironing out the details and everything. So that leads me to believe that they probably would have been 4 or 5 episodes into 46 before they left, because that seems to be what happens is they leave about halfway through the previous season airing when they start a
yeah.
new
That makes
cycle of
sense.
two. um we did have two fan questions as well.
Oh my god, I forgot. I'm so sorry.
No worries, that's why I'm here. um One of them.
Wait, I before we
Yep.
answer my one single thought that I will just put out about
Yes.
47 quickly. Uh, the good side, I don't know her. I don't actually listen to rap very often. What is her name? Asia. That was cast.
I don't know.
Um,
I
oh,
also.
the one of the frequent hosts on Rob Has a
Oh,
Podcast to talk Survivor.
yes.
Is on this is now on season 47. That's amazing, and I was super excited.
Me too.
I wasn't aware who she was until I learned everything. Everyone was so excited. I believe her name's Asia. I want to say maybe something like that. But so that was really cool. But the thing that I am not super thrilled about, and please do not take this in any way of to try to deduce my personal political beliefs in any way. We don't need political personalities on the show. I think they should just not cast political personalities. You or I don't even know if you're aware in maybe in
No.
Canada, but the last guy shown in the trailer is John Lovett,
Okay. Yeah.
who is a major political pundit now, who was a former speechwriter for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
Has had a very successful career and now is a big person in media circles. And so again, to say nothing of my whether what I would agree or not agree with, or whose team I'm on, or any of that things, I just think it doesn't behoove the show to bring in anyone whose profession is big name in the political world, because it just invites too many. We don't need to invite political conversations. We've already had multiple. This person liked this tweet this week that was like, yeah, that sucks, but
Yeah.
can't go back and take his $1 million away. So it's too bad, everyone. I'm sorry. And I just I don't want to talk about politics when I'm talking about Survivor every Wednesday. I
I get
watch these
that.
shows to get away of talking about other stuff that might bring anxiety levels and things up. So not that I'm a fan or not a fan of John Lovitz, who is obviously a great talker and an incredible speechwriter back in the day, and is probably going to be massively entertaining. I just don't. I don't think we need to cast anyone from the political realm. I
So
like the celebrity casting though. I like when there's like the
yeah,
one pseudo celebrity on, like that's always fun. But just maybe not from the political realm.
I freaked out when Mike White was on the show, because
Yeah, like that's
I
super cool.
recognized him immediately, and Sarah was like, "Why are you so excited?" Because I just saw a random guy on a boat, and I was like, "Are you serious?" I will say, so I was watching it slightly behind because we started it late. We were watching with friends,
Mhm.
and somebody on Facebook posted about John Lovett on Facebook about how like he was on season 47. So I misread that, and I will cop to this now. I misread that, and then as we
The
were
actor.
yeah, I 100% thought that they were saying that John
Yeah,
Lovitz was on season 47. Yeah,
same name minus the S, but
yeah,
yes, I saw multiple funny tweets that have been often when he's come up in the political world too. Sometimes people will be like, "Wait a minute," and they'll be like, "Oh, like I thought it was going to be this guy," like,
yeah,
and then they'll like throw up a picture from Rat Race or something and be like, "Is this guy writing speeches for Barack Obama?" It's like, no, but that's funny. Same as, I saw a couple tweets of like, someone told me John Lovitz was on and I got so excited, but I thought it was this guy. And like,
yeah. I 100% thought it was that guy because I opened it and then I saw what I only caught part of it because I closed it immediately because I didn't want to be spoiled on anything and I didn't know what they were talking about. But that was the piece that stuck in my head, and then I was like, I told everybody, if what I read is correct online, then this trailer is going to be amazing. And then the trailer happened, and I didn't see John Lovitz. And then at the end, I was like, I don't know what happened. And
Yeah,
then
actor John Lovitz would be incredible on
right,
Survivor.
I would watch the hell
Yeah.
out of that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, he just so everyone is aware, John Lovitz of Rat Race fame, not in
And
season
many
40
others. Yeah.
several.
Yeah.
The other one,
So yeah, John Lovett will likely be very entertaining, but
yes.
just no one asked me about any political stance, or asked me to listen to his political podcast to hear his Survivor takes. I'll hear
Or
his
me,
Survivor takes elsewhere.
because
Um,
I don't know anything.
yeah,
I'm from
yeah,
Canada.
and yeah,
I thought he was the guy from Rat Race until like I realized he wasn't.
Yeah. All right. Listener questions that I
Listener
skipped. I'm
questions.
sorry.
That's
Thank you for
okay.
writing and listening and sending them in.
So we've got one from Jen and one from Kim. I'm really enjoying the fact that people are giving us fan questions. It makes me happy because it means that people listen to us. But also that
Sorry,
like,
we make you listen to the end of 2 hours
yeah,
to get
just to hear your
answers to your
question.
That's my bad. I swear we put you in the middle
We
of
did.
the outline at the start of this podcast,
And then
I just
we
messed up.
just got excited. So yeah, so Janet asked how we feel that the edit went for the final people left. So the example she gave was like Erica was like criminally underseen in her season, and we didn't really see like Gabler's path to the end in his season. Do you feel that like we got a fairly good edit on the final three? Like I felt like as soon as Kenzie won, I did this whole like Memento style flashback of yeah, she was totally like front and center for most of it. Um Ben I felt was a little bit underseen. Um he was kind of in the background a bit, but I think Kenzie got a fairly I feel a fairly accurate edit of her path to the final.
Hmm. I think that they kind of nailed it this time around. If anything, it was a little more for like the editing educ folk out there that like really are trying to like figure out who's winning just based on the edit or whatever. It was probably one of the slightly more obvious seasons, which
Yeah.
like the show shouldn't have to deal with,
No.
like be concerned about are we giving it away or whatever, to that extent. But like confessional count wise, Charlie ended up with the most of the season with 84. Kenzie was second with 75. Ben, Liz, and Maria were 45, 43, 48. The only other one like way up anywhere near where Charlie and Kenzie were was Q at 74, which feels correct.
Yep.
And so I think, yeah, they were appropriately made sure even if Kenzie wasn't always in the storyline, would like given us plenty of Kenzie, and
Yep.
she's obviously great in confessional, so it worked. But using her as like a narrator as much as anyone probably to like get extra screen time and confessionals in. Charlie was just a part of most of the big storylines and was amazing at being a narrator for sure. And then the fact that like, Q and Maria, like that Ben didn't have a lot was mostly because like I get that out of the final six,
Yeah.
he was had the least storylines or compelling storylines to work with. So like they were fine with like, well, just because he's in the final three, there's 5 people in the final episode, and there's
Yeah.
6 or 7 in the ones before. So like Q's going to get a ton of screen time, and Maria's going to get a ton of screen time, and Liz is, and so on and so forth. So I think they actually kind of nailed the like balancing out
Especially
this
top
many
6.
really good characters, this many really big personalities, that like I feel like we got enough Tevin, like a fair amount of
Yep.
Tevin while he was still there, and then Tiffany, and then Venus, and then Q, like as each one went.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like we got a very balanced. They were like, look, everyone's great here. We can't go too heavy on any single person. Um, and so yeah, I think they kind of nailed it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job, especially the final 6. As we started dwindling people down, it was really still anyone's game. Like the final 6 were all we're all contenders to win, and I feel like we got that with the edit as well.
And I think they would have, like, the real test case to show that they got it right would have been, let's say Liz would have won,
Mm-hmm.
that they started the Liz storyline and like her talking about everyone's kind of looking over me.
Yep.
in those other examples given, like there the world where like Liz would win the season, we didn't, and they didn't start that until like the last 3 episodes or whatever, but like they started it pretty early on post merge to even like make up sure to build up the fourth place person, that like their story was pretty flushed out, and
Yeah.
they knew we've got these couple big moments that revolve around her later, so it can't just be like suddenly Liz is the center of attention and no one knows anything about her. So yeah, I think they nailed it.
Likewise. And then the last question is from Kim. With Are there any questions that the jury didn't ask that you wish they would have, that you think could have like helped flesh it out?
Again, we obviously they ask more than we
See.
see, but I I don't think no one ever asked. Well, one, there wasn't any Liz Liz nor Venus was like there anymore. I really just wanted them to sort out who gets the credit for soda. It would have been hilarious. But obviously no one left was left to have that. But if Liz would have been there, getting to finally sort that out. Because the other thing I didn't totally love about the jury was the couple times it was mostly Q and Tiff like kind of got in arguments a couple times, but like the jury kind of argued with each other a few
Yeah.
times, and I didn't love that. But the one I would have been interested in is seeing Venus and Tevin be like, "Well, hold up, Liz. Whoa, 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 that's complete bullshit." And Liz being like, "Actually, both of you were complete bullshit, and I had to listen to you cry
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
it on the
Yeah.
beach,
Yeah.
all right, or whatever." So I off of that, I kind of wish someone would have asked directly, who up here do you feel you had the most credit in getting out of the game?
Yeah.
None of us were voted out by one of you and only one of you, but of the people up here, is there anyone you can point to and say I was the leader of that? Which I felt like is like the kind of most basic thing to ask, of like, from like a resume perspective of like, who are you responsible for up here? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of asking what was your big move, but a more specific reason of like, hey, of all of us up here, Charlie, Kenzie, and Ben, which of us, if any of us, do you feel like you were the leader of, we're sitting over here, even though 6 people had to vote to get me here? I would have liked someone framing a question more that way and having them kind of all, because it would have been mostly interesting, because I don't think any of them could have unequivocally said any
Yeah.
of them. Even Kenzie and Charlie, I don't think could like completely. There isn't one that'd be like, well, obviously this person, like you for me or whatever. I think Charlie, it would have given Charlie a chance to say what I think was his best move he could have leaned on is it was going to be me or Maria,
Yeah.
and I without an idol got it to be Q, and he had an idol in his pocket, and I somehow escaped when my number one and everyone else kind of agreed, thought I should go,
Yeah.
which I thought was the one thing that we didn't hear him get to talk about that was his best move. So something that would have got him there, something more specific to like who's responsible for who kind of talk up here, was the only thing I really could come up with. I'm going to be a bad jury member when I'm a jury member one day. I'll have more time to think about it, I guess, but my questions might not be very good.
That's okay. The questions have sort of shifted now to being like statements. Um,
Yeah.
I did see somebody tweet that the fact that the Yanu Three spent most of Final Tribal Council arguing with each other is very on brand. Um,
Yeah.
I think another question that I've always found really interesting is who, if you're not sitting where you are and you're on the jury, who is in your spot and why should they win $1 million? Um, it's
Definitely would have helped Charlie too.
Yeah, and it would have maybe swayed Maria back to his side, and not to say that this question is specifically for that, but I think that it would be really interesting because you have like a wide range of jury members, and you've got people like Tevin who were playing a really good game and they just got cut down because they were a threat, and you have other people like Maria who got as far as she could get before she was just like taken out at the knees. So as much as it could be perceived as just like trying to get a jury vote, because you could kind of pivot and pick somebody who you think that you might not have their vote and say them and give a really good reason as to why you feel that they could have won $1 million and that could save you a vote. Um, but I also think that it's a really good question because it also speaks to, um, I guess the other thing would be, why should these two win instead of you, is a better way
Mhm.
to frame it, because then you're not just getting favor from somebody on the jury. You're specifically saying why these two people have played a better game than you have.
Yeah. Would in this situation, obviously Kenzie would say Tiff, but would
Yeah.
there be any world where Kenzie would be like, well, obviously Q would be over here, and now I'm going to try to defend Q's game. Let's see what I come up with. That would have been amazing.
She could have lost Tiff's vote in that moment.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think she could have
No, me neither.
lost it, but yeah, that's a really good one, man.
Yeah.
You'd be a good jury member. I'm gonna have to
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to start applying.
I'm gonna have to ask you for tips if they ever give me a call back, which you definitely should, since producers are definitely still listening to this almost 2.5 hours into this podcast. Those are great questions. Those are great listeners. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry you had to wait till the end of every episode for me to remember that your wonderful questions were sent our way. But with that, I think that does it. Season 46 is in the books, and now we look forward to season 40. Final question: Will Jelensky get a reference from Jeff on season 47 or not? Because the season 47 folks will have no idea what this reference is to.
Although they will have seen potentially Jelensky, but won't have.
Yeah, they would have probably seen the beginning of
but they won't have seen just how much it carried through the whole season.
Yeah, they won't know that it's like a thing.
Maybe 48. Maybe we take a break from several for 40 several, and then it comes back into the lexicon in 48. Maybe.
Yeah, it's just bad timing, man.
Yeah.
If you would have been on season 45, you definitely would have got to mention episode 1 of season 40 several. But
it's true.
You get a mention here. You were the first out, and somehow the last mentioned on this podcast, which is slightly embarrassing, if I'm being honest with myself. But I brought it up. It's on me.
It's true.
Awesome. Well, great season, Tony. Great
Likewise.
Season, all listeners. Great season, all cast members of Survivor 46. Thank you to all of you for putting your lives on TV for us to be entertained by and critique and have opinions about. And thank you to the wonderful production that does 99% of their job amazing and right. And that 1% they let Liz cheat for Kenzie and cost Maria $1 million. And otherwise, you're perfect. And I love you. And I hope you call me sometime very soon. And with that, that's the end of Survivor Historian for this season. Maybe it'll be back. Maybe it won't. Who knows? 40 several is, obviously a monumental season for several reasons. So there may or may not be several podcast episodes about it. You'll just have to click that follow, subscribe wherever you're listening so that you know if we pop back up on your feed sometime in the future or don't. Either way, hit subscribe and follow, please. And thank you. And yeah, that's it. Goodbye.